We're drifting slowly into the lore of the Marvel Universe, a quiet telling of a story that was doomed from its very first spark, a universe born with 6 stones of impossible power, and with them, the certainty that someone, someday, would reach for all of them at once. From the cosmic dawn billions of years before humanity, through every empire that rose and every hero who fell, this is the whole doomed arc, told gently, in the order it truly happened. Settle in, let your breathing slow, and let the story carry you. We're drifting slowly into the timeline of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, a vast tapestry of cosmic wonder and mortal ambition that began with the birth of existence itself, only to spiral through eons of heroism and tragedy, of gods and monsters, of choices that echo across infinite realities. Born in the silent void before time had meaning, where singularities collapsed and exploded into being, it grew into a cosmos teeming with life, with civilizations rising and falling like waves upon an endless shore. But beneath the spectacle of powers beyond comprehension, something darker always lurked. The hunger for control, the weight of destiny, the terrible price of wielding forces never meant for mortal hands. This is the story of how a universe came into being, how stones of infinite power were scattered across the stars, and how every triumph, every sacrifice, every choice made by heroes and villains alike woven into a pattern of inevitable doom. A pattern that began not with a hero's journey, but with the first breath of creation itself. Billions of years ago, in the cosmic dawn before worlds or stars or the concept of distance had any meaning, there was nothing. And then, in an instant that defied all understanding, there was everything. The universe burst forth from a single point, a singularity of infinite density and infinite potential, expanding outward in a cascade of raw energy and possibility. Space unfurled like a canvas. Time began its relentless march. Matter coalesced from the roiling chaos, and in that first explosive moment, the fundamental laws that would govern all of existence were written into the fabric of reality itself. It was not a gentle birth. It was violent, sudden, a scream of light and force that tore through the void and left behind a cosmos still trembling from the shock of its own creation. But that first singularity was not alone. Before the universe as we know it could fully stabilize, 6 other singularities existed, each one a concentrated wellspring of a fundamental aspect of existence. And when the universe came into being, these 6 singularities did not simply vanish into the expanding whole. Instead, they crystallized. They condensed into 6 elemental artifacts, each one a shard of the very forces that made reality possible. 6 infinity stones, forged in the crucible of creation, each one a key to a different dimension of the cosmos. The Space Stone, a brilliant blue gem that could bend distance and location to its wielder's will, allowing travel across the vastness of the universe in the blink of an eye. The Mind Stone, glowing yellow, a conduit to consciousness itself, capable of granting intelligence, reading thoughts, or bending the will of others. The Reality Stone, a swirling red liquid encased in stone, able to rewrite the laws of physics, to turn illusion into truth and truth into nightmare. The Power Stone, pulsing violet, raw destructive force incarnate, able to obliterate planets or grant its user strength beyond measure. The Soul Stone, burning orange, a gateway to the essence of life itself, demanding sacrifice and offering knowledge of every soul that has ever existed. And the Time Stone, a serene green, granting dominion over the flow of moments, the ability to rewind, fast forward, or trap existence in endless loops. These stones were not meant to be wielded. They were not tools. They were the building blocks of everything. And to hold even one was to grasp a fragment of the universe's very foundation. Scattered across the newborn cosmos, they would lie dormant, hidden, waiting for eons to pass before beings of ambition or desperation would seek them out. But their presence, even in silence, shaped the destiny of all that would come. As the universe expanded and cooled, as galaxies began to form and stars ignited in the darkness, other forces stirred. Cosmic entities, beings of unimaginable scale and power, emerged from the primal energies of creation. Chief among them were the Celestials, towering godlike figures clad in armor that gleamed with the light of distant suns. They were ancient beyond reckoning, their origins lost even to themselves, and they took upon themselves a grand purpose. They would be the architects of life. Moving through the void with slow, deliberate grace, the Celestials traveled to young planets, worlds still molten and raw, and there they planted seeds. Not seeds of plants or trees, but seeds of potential genetic blueprints that would, over millions of years, give rise to sentient beings. They experimented, observed, manipulated. On some worlds, they created species of immense power, beings who would one day be called Eternals, immortal guardians tasked with protecting the life the Celestials had sown. On others, they introduced the X gene, a mutation that would lie dormant for eons before awakening in select individuals, granting them abilities that defied natural law. The Celestials did not create out of kindness. They created with purpose, though their purpose remained inscrutable, hidden behind their silent, towering forms. They seeded worlds, watched them grow, and when the time came, they would return to judge, to see if their experiments had borne fruit worthy of continuation, or if the world must be unmade and the process begun anew. But the Celestials were not the only watchers of this young universe. As reality solidified and the rules of existence became fixed, other entities took form. The Living Tribunal, a being of three faces, each one representing a different aspect of cosmic justice, equity, and necessity, emerged as the ultimate arbiter of law across all realities. It stood beyond the multiverse itself, ensuring that no single universe grew too powerful, that no force, no matter how mighty, could tip the balance of all existence into chaos. It was judge, jury, and executioner, and its word was final. Few beings ever encountered it. Fewer still survived the encounter unchanged. And then there were the Watchers, an ancient race, humanoid in form but vast in knowledge, who had once walked among the stars as explorers and teachers. But they had learned through bitter experience the cost of interference. On one world, they had shared their knowledge freely, hoping to guide a young civilization toward enlightenment. Instead, that civilization had turned their gifts into weapons and destroyed themselves in a cataclysm of fire and ash. The Watchers, grief-stricken and humbled, swore an oath. Never again would they interfere. They would observe. They would chronicle. They would bear witness to every triumph and every tragedy, to every birth and every death, but they would not act. They stationed themselves on moons and asteroids at the edge of galaxies, their enormous eyes unblinking, recording the unfolding story of the cosmos in silence. They became living archives, repositories of all that had ever been, but bound by their vow to do nothing with that knowledge. Eternity and infinity, personifications of time and space themselves, also came into being during these early eons. They were not beings in the way mortals understood the word. They were concepts given form, vast and incomprehensible, their bodies composed of galaxies and nebulae, their thoughts spanning dimensions. Eternity embodied all of time, every moment that had ever been or ever would be, while infinity encompassed all of space, every location, every distance. Together, they were the twin pillars upon which the universe rested, and their existence ensured that reality itself remained stable. That cause followed effect, that here and there had meaning. And in the quiet spaces between stars, on worlds warmed by young suns, the first sentient life began to stir. Simple at first, single-celled organisms that divided and evolved, driven by the relentless push of survival. Over millions of years, they grew more complex. They developed senses, nervous systems, the capacity for thought. The earliest civilizations began to form, crude and fragile, but marking the dawn of something new. Intelligence, consciousness, the ability to look up at the stars and wonder what lay beyond. These first beings had no knowledge of the Infinity Stones, no awareness of the Celestials watching from above, no concept of the cosmic forces that had shaped their existence. They simply lived, and in living, they began the long, winding story that would one day lead to heroes and villains, to wars that spanned galaxies, and to choices that would determine the fate of all things. Millions of years pass in the silence of the cosmos, and the raw energies of creation begin to take form, to coalesce into something deliberate, something watchful. The universe, once a canvas of infinite possibility painted by the Big Bang, now becomes a garden tended by beings of unimaginable scale and power. The Celestials emerge from the cosmic depths, ancient and towering, their origins lost even to their own memory, perhaps born from the same primordial forces that gave rise to the Infinity Stones themselves. They are not gods in the way mortals might understand divinity, but they are architects, judges, experimenters. They move through the void with purpose, their armor gleaming with the light of stars, their eyes burning with the cold fire of eternity. At the heart of this cosmic order stands Arishem the Judge, the prime celestial, first among equals, perhaps the first to wake from the dreaming chaos of the universe's infancy. Arishem is vast, his form stretching across the heavens, his presence a weight that bends space itself. 6 eyes glow upon his crimson face, each one a window into calculations beyond mortal comprehension. He does not speak in words that echo through air, but in thoughts that resonate across dimensions, in commands that ripple through the fabric of reality. Arishem observes, he measures, he decides. Civilizations rise and fall under his gaze, and he judges them not by their compassion or their art, but by their potential, by their capacity to serve a purpose far grander than their own survival. The purpose is simple and terrible. The Celestials require energy to sustain their existence, to birth new members of their kind, and that energy comes from the life force of entire worlds. A Celestial gestates within the core of a planet, feeding on the ambient energy generated by billions of sentient minds, by the spark of consciousness itself. When enough life has flourished, when enough souls have burned brightly enough for long enough, the Celestial within awakens, and the planet cracks open like an egg, destroyed utterly, its inhabitants obliterated in an instant to give birth to a new cosmic giant. This is the emergence, the moment of birth and apocalypse intertwined, and it has happened countless times across the eons, on worlds whose names are now less than dust. To facilitate this grand cycle, Arishem initiates what will be remembered as the first host, a coordinated effort across the universe to seed life on barren worlds, to accelerate evolution, to cultivate the conditions necessary for sentient populations to thrive. Celestials descend upon lifeless rocks spinning in the dark, and with gestures that reshape continents, they plant the seeds of biology, of chemistry tuned for complexity, of environments that will nurture the slow climb from single cells to thinking beings. They do not wait for natural selection alone to do its work. They intervene, they guide, they engineer. Genetic codes are written with intention, evolutionary pathways are carved with precision, and the timeline that might have taken billions of years is compressed, accelerated, bent to the celestials' will. Earth, a small blue world orbiting an unremarkable yellow star in a spiral arm of the Milky Way, becomes one of these experimental gardens. The celestials arrive in the deep past, when early hominids are just beginning to stand upright, to use tools, to look at the stars and wonder. The celestials see potential in these primitive creatures, raw material that can be shaped, and they conduct experiments that will echo through all of human history. They take the genetic fabric of these early humans and twist it, splice it, infuse it with energies drawn from the cosmos itself. Two distinct races emerge from this cosmic tampering, each designed with a specific role in the grand design. The first are the Eternals, beings engineered to be perfect, immortal, nearly indestructible. They are given forms that resemble the humans they are meant to protect, but beneath the surface, they are something else entirely. Synthetic constructs woven from cosmic energy and programmed with purpose. Each Eternal is gifted with abilities that defy the laws of physics as mortals understand them. Some can manipulate matter at the molecular level, reshaping stone and steel with a thought. Others can project beams of pure energy from their eyes or hands, capable of cutting through mountains. Some possess strength that could shatter planets if unleashed without restraint, while others move with speed that makes them blurs even to enhance perception. A few are granted mental powers, telepathy and illusion, the ability to reach into minds and rewrite thoughts, to make enemies see what is not there, to soothe or terrify with equal ease. But the Eternals are not free. They are bound by directives encoded into their very essence, commandments that cannot be disobeyed without great internal struggle. They are told they exist to protect intelligent life, to shepherd humanity through its infancy, to guard against threats that would extinguish the flame of consciousness before it burns bright enough. They are told they must not interfere in human conflicts unless those conflicts involve their ancient enemies, the deviants. They are told to trust Arisham, to believe in the righteousness of their mission, and for thousands of years, most of them do. The second race born from the Celestials' experiments are the deviants, and they are a mistake, or perhaps a test, or perhaps a necessary counterbalance. Where the Eternals are stable, the deviants are chaos. Their genetic code is deliberately unstable, designed to mutate rapidly, to adapt and change with each generation, sometimes with each individual as they age. The Celestials intend for them to be an evolutionary pressure, a threat that will force other species to grow stronger, to evolve faster, to reach the critical mass of population and consciousness needed for the emergence. But the deviants become something more monstrous than intended. They are born twisted, their bodies warped into forms that inspire terror, with too many limbs or eyes in wrong places, with hides like armor and claws like blades, with appetites that drive them to hunt and kill. They are intelligent, but their intelligence is bent toward survival at any cost, toward domination, toward the consumption of those weaker than themselves. The deviants spread across the ancient earth, preying on early human tribes, devouring them, enslaving them, and in doing so, they threaten the very experiment the Celestials have begun. If humanity is wiped out before it can grow, before it can build civilizations and generate the energy needed for the emergence, then the celestial gestating in Earth's core will starve, will fail to wake, and the planet will have been wasted. And so, the Eternals are dispatched, sent down from the celestial ship that hovers in orbit, the Domo, a vessel of impossible technology that serves as their base and their prison. They are given their mission: protect humanity, destroy the deviants, and they obey. For thousands of years they hunt the monsters across continents, through ice ages and warm periods, through the rise of the first cities and the dawn of recorded history. The deviants are driven to the edges of the world, into hiding, into the deep places where even the Eternals cannot easily follow. But they are never fully eradicated, and their threat lingers like a shadow at the edge of human memory, becoming myth, becoming legend, becoming the monsters that haunt our oldest stories. Far beyond Earth, in the cold reaches of space where even stars are distant points of light, the Celestials maintain the World Forge, a cosmic facility of scale and grandeur that defies description. It is here that new Celestials are born, not from the emergence alone, but from the careful recycling of cosmic energies, from the souls of Celestials who have fallen or completed their purpose. The World Forge is tended by the Celestials themselves, a place of creation and rebirth, where the raw stuff of the universe is shaped into new titans, where the cycle continues, endless and inexorable. It is a place mortals are never meant to see, a secret kept behind veils of space and time. But its existence is the keystone of the celestial order, the engine that drives their expansion across the cosmos, their judgment of world after world, their slow, patient cultivation of life in service of their own perpetuation. Millennia pass, and the raw cosmic forces that shaped existence begin to settle into something more ordered. The 9 realms, those great branches of the cosmic tree, coalesce from the swirling energies left behind by the Celestials' work. Thousands of years ago, in an age we might call the Asgardian dawn, the universe finds a new kind of balance, and with it, new civilizations rise to claim their place among the stars. In this ancient time on the golden realm of Asgard, a child is born who will shape the destiny of countless worlds. Odin, son of Bor, enters a universe still young, still wild, still dangerous. The Asgardians themselves, a race of beings whose lifespans stretch across millennia, whose strength far exceeds that of mortal men, begin to build something extraordinary on their shining realm. They raise great halls, forge weapons of impossible power, and develop technologies that blend science and what others might call magic into something altogether beyond categorization. Asgard becomes a beacon, a golden city suspended in the heavens, its towers reaching toward infinity, its people proud, its warriors unmatched. But the 9 realms are not at peace. They are connected, yes, bound together by the branches of Yggdrasil, the cosmic tree that links world to world. But connection does not mean harmony. In the fiery depths of Muspelheim, realm of flame and ash, the fire demon Surtur stirs. Ancient, colossal, wreathed in eternal fire, Surtur is not merely a threat to one world, but to all of them. His power, if left unchecked, could ignite a conflagration that would consume the 9 realms entirely, reducing everything to cinder and void. The prophecy of Ragnarok, the twilight of the gods, the end of all things, whispers even then in the shadows, and Surtur stands at its heart. Odin, now grown, now warrior in his own right, does not stand alone. His brothers, Vili and Ve, fight beside him. 3 sons of Bor united against the darkness. Together they descend into Muspelheim, into that realm of molten rock and suffocating heat, where the very air burns and the ground cracks beneath rivers of fire. The battle is fierce, desperate, the kind of conflict that echoes through history. Surtur, towering and terrible, wields power that could shatter worlds, but Odin and his brothers are relentless. They fight not for glory, though glory will come, but for survival, for the future of all the realms. In the end, they prevail. Surtur is defeated, cast down, his power diminished, though not destroyed. The fire demon retreats into the depths of his realm, and the 9 realms are spared, at least for now. This victory marks a turning point. The Asgardians, led by Odin, begin to see themselves not merely as one civilization among many, but as protectors, guardians of the cosmic order. They take it upon themselves to intervene in the conflicts that rage across the realms, to impose peace where there is chaos, to defend the weak against the strong. It is a noble vision, perhaps, but also a dangerous one, because it places Asgard at the center of everything, and power, even when wielded with good intentions, has a way of corrupting. Odin turns his gaze to Jotunheim, the frozen realm of the frost giants. These beings, towering and blue-skinned, born of ice and cold, possess their own terrible power. The casket of ancient winters, an artifact of immense destructive potential, rests in their hands. With it, they could plunge entire worlds into eternal winter, freezing oceans, extinguishing suns, ending life itself. Odin sees this as a threat that cannot be tolerated. He wages war against the frost giants, leading the armies of Asgard across the Bifrost, that rainbow bridge that connects the realms, into the icy wastes of Jotunheim. The war is brutal, unforgiving. Frost giants and Asgardians clash in battles that shake mountains and split glaciers. Blood, red and blue, stains the snow. The cold is so intense it would kill a mortal in moments, but these are not mortals. These are beings of myth, and they fight with the fury of gods. Odin, wielding Gungnir, the spear that never misses, leads from the front. His warriors, clad in gleaming armor, follow without hesitation. The frost giants, led by their king Laufey, fight to defend their realm, their way of life, their very existence. In the end, Asgard triumphs. Odin defeats Laufey, though he does not kill him, not yet. He seizes the casket of ancient winters, taking it back to Asgard where it will be locked away in the vault, a trophy, a symbol of victory, a weapon too dangerous to be left in anyone's hands. The frost giants are broken, their power diminished, their realm reduced to a shadow of what it once was. Jotunheim becomes a frozen wasteland, its people bitter, resentful, nursing a hatred that will smolder for centuries. But Odin's wars are not only against external enemies. The Asgardians themselves are not a single unified people. There are the Aesir, Odin's people, and there are the Vanir, another tribe of Asgardian beings, equally powerful, equally proud. For generations, the Aesir and the Vanir have fought each other in a long, grinding, destructive conflict that has cost both sides dearly. Cities burn, warriors fall, and still the war drags on. Neither side able to claim final victory, neither side willing to surrender. Odin, perhaps weary of endless bloodshed, perhaps recognizing the futility of the conflict, seeks a different path. He reaches out to the Vanir, proposing not conquest, but alliance. Negotiations are delicate, fraught with suspicion and old grievances, but eventually an agreement is reached. The war ends, not with annihilation, but with integration. The Vanir are brought into Asgard's fold, their warriors joining Odin's ranks, their knowledge and magic blending with Asgardian science. It is a fragile peace, built on pragmatism as much as trust, but it holds. The Aesir and Vanir become one people, and Asgard grows stronger for it. In this era of conquest and consolidation, Odin takes a queen. Frigga, wise and powerful in her own right, a master of magic, becomes his partner, his counsel, his equal in all but name. Together they rule Asgard, and together they have a child. Hela, firstborn of Odin, enters the world with a destiny already written in blood and fire. From the earliest age, it is clear she is no ordinary Asgardian. Her strength surpasses even the mightiest warriors. Her skill with weapons is unmatched. Her hunger for battle, for glory, for conquest, burns brighter than the sun. Odin, still in his years of ambition, still believing that Asgard's destiny is to rule, not merely to protect, sees in Hela the perfect instrument of his will. He names her his executioner, his right hand, the one who will lead his armies to victory after victory. Together, father and daughter cut a bloody path across the cosmos. They conquer realm after realm, bringing them under Asgard's dominion, expanding the empire until its influence stretches to the farthest corners of the known universe. Hela revels in it, in the violence, in the power, in the fear she inspires. She is unstoppable, merciless, a goddess of death in truth as well as name. But Odin changes. Perhaps age brings wisdom, or perhaps the weight of all that bloodshed grows too heavy to bear. He begins to see the cost of his ambition, the suffering inflicted in Asgard's name, the resentment simmering in the conquered realms. He decides to change course, to transform Asgard from an empire built on conquest into a force for peace, for protection, for balance. He speaks of mercy, of restraint, of ruling not through fear but through respect. Hela does not change. She cannot. The hunger for conquest is not a choice for her. It is her nature, her purpose, the very core of her being. She sees Odin's new vision as weakness, as betrayal, as a denial of everything they built together. She refuses to stop, refuses to lay down her weapons, refuses to accept a future where Asgard is anything less than the supreme power in the universe. Father and daughter, once united, now stand opposed. Odin realizes, with a grief that will haunt him for millennia, that Hela is too dangerous to be allowed to continue. Her power has grown too great, her brutality too extreme, her ambition too insatiable. She would plunge the 9 realms into endless war, would drown the cosmos in blood, would never stop until everything bows before her or lies in ruins. He makes the hardest decision a father can make. He moves against his own daughter. The battle between them is cataclysmic, a clash of titans that shakes Asgard to its foundations. Hela fights with everything she has, but even she cannot stand against the combined might of Odin and the Valkyries, Asgard's elite warrior women who fight at his command. The Valkyries pay a terrible price, most of them falling in the battle, their sacrifice buying the victory. In the end, Odin prevails, but he cannot bring himself to kill Hela. Instead, he imprisons her, binding her with magic, sealing her away in a prison from which she cannot escape as long as he lives. He erases her from history, striking her name from the records, forbidding anyone to speak of her, trying to bury the shame and the sorrow of what she became, of what he made her. The golden halls of Asgard stand tall. The 9 realms are at peace, and Odin is hailed as the wise and benevolent All-Father. But beneath the glory, beneath the songs of victory, there is a wound that will never heal, a daughter locked away in darkness, a secret that will one day return to claim its due. While Asgard carved its legacy among the stars, Earth itself was quietly becoming a stage for powers both cosmic and mystical. Thousands of years ago, long before the first recorded civilizations rose from the dust, our world drew the attention of beings whose very existence defied comprehension. The Celestials, towering entities clad in armor that seemed forged from the fabric of creation itself, descended upon the primitive landscapes of early Earth. They were not conquerors in any traditional sense. They were experimenters, architects of evolution, beings who saw potential in the raw genetic clay of humanity and chose to mold it according to designs we may never fully understand. The Celestials selected early human populations, perhaps drawn by some quality in our DNA, some spark they recognized as worthy of transformation. From these chosen subjects, they engineered two divergent species, each an extreme expression of human potential pushed to supernatural limits. The Eternals emerged as beings of near perfection, immortal warriors and thinkers gifted with cosmic energy and powers that range from flight to matter manipulation, from telepathy to the projection of devastating force. They were beautiful, enduring, designed to be guardians. The Deviants, by contrast, embodied instability itself. Their genetics were volatile, ever-changing, producing monstrous forms and unpredictable abilities. Where the Eternals represented order and preservation, the Deviants became chaos incarnate, a species whose very nature was to evolve wildly, dangerously, beyond control. The Celestials departed, leaving their creations to fulfill purposes that would only become clear across millennia. The Eternals would watch over humanity in secret, intervening at key moments, shaping the course of history from the shadows. The Deviants would become the monsters of legend, the creatures lurking in dark places, hunted and feared. But the Celestials' touch on Earth was only one thread in the tapestry of ancient power being woven across the world. As humanity began to organize itself into tribes and settlements, as the first cities rose from river valleys and coastal plains, another force emerged to protect the fragile species from threats that had nothing to do with physical evolution. The mystical realm, that dimension of magic and spiritual energy that exists parallel to our own, pressed against the boundaries of reality. Entities from beyond, demons and dark gods, extra-dimensional beings of malevolent intent, sought entry into our world. They whispered through the veil, promising power to those who would listen, seeking vessels and doorways. Against this tide of supernatural danger, the first Sorcerer Supreme rose to stand as Earth's shield. We do not know their name, that first guardian of the mystic arts. History has lost the details of their life, their face, their origin. But we know they were chosen, or perhaps they chose themselves, to master the arcane forces that most humans could not even perceive. They learned to draw power from other dimensions, to shape reality through will and gesture and ancient words. They established the role, the sacred duty, that would be passed down through generations. The Sorcerer Supreme would be Earth's first and last defense against mystical annihilation, the guardian who stood watch while humanity slept, unaware of the horrors kept at bay. Among those early masters of the mystic arts, one name endures with particular reverence: Agamotto, a sorcerer of such profound skill and vision that he would become legend, rose to the mantle of Sorcerer Supreme in an age when magic was still young and wild. Agamotto understood that defense required more than knowledge and will. It required tools, artifacts that could channel and focus mystical energy, objects that could serve future generations long after he himself had passed from the world. He forged the Eye of Agamotto, a mystical relic of extraordinary power, housing within it the Time Stone, one of the 6 Infinity Stones, though that connection would remain hidden for thousands of years. The eye granted its wielder the ability to perceive truth, to see through illusions and deceptions, to manipulate time itself in limited but profound ways. Agamotto created other artifacts as well, relics and tomes that would form the foundation of the mystic library, the accumulated wisdom that each sorcerer supreme would inherit and expand upon. He established sanctums, places of power where the barriers between dimensions could be monitored and reinforced. His legacy became the bedrock upon which all future defenders of Earth's mystical integrity would build. While sorcerers wove their protective spells and the Eternals watched from hidden places, other powers were stirring in the mortal world. In the lands that would one day be known as Asia, an organization began to form around a set of 10 rings, artifacts of unknown origin that granted their wielder immortality and powers that blurred the line between magic and something else entirely. The rings were ancient even then, their true source lost to time. Were they forged by the same cosmic forces that created the Infinity Stones? Were they the work of some forgotten civilization, or gifts from entities beyond our understanding? No one knew. But the man who claimed them, who would become known as the Mandarin, built an empire of influence and shadow around their power. The 10 Rings organization spread its roots deep into the underworld of human civilization, a network of warriors and spies and assassins loyal to their immortal master. They would endure for millennia, operating in secret, shaping conflicts, toppling kingdoms, always serving the will of the man with the rings. On the African continent, in the region that would become Wakanda, a meteorite fell from the heavens, carrying within it a metal unlike any found naturally on Earth. Vibranium, a substance of extraordinary properties, capable of absorbing and redistributing kinetic energy, nearly indestructible, resonant with possibilities that would take generations to fully explore. The impact created a crater, and around that crater, 5 tribes settled, drawn by the richness of the land, unaware at first of the treasure buried beneath their feet. As they discovered the vibranium and began to understand its potential, conflict arose. Each tribe wanted control of the metal, the power it represented. War threatened to consume them all. Into this chaos came Bast, the panther god, a deity whose origins are woven into the spiritual fabric of the land itself. Bast appeared to a warrior named Bashenga, a man of vision and strength, and guided him to unite the fractured tribes. Bast granted Bashenga the power of the Black Panther, enhanced strength and speed and senses, the ability to commune with the spirits of past panthers. With Bast's blessing and the heart-shaped herb that grew in Wakanda's soil, enriched by vibranium's presence, Bashenga brought the 5 tribes together under a single banner. He became the first Black Panther, the first king of a united Wakanda. The tribes agreed to share the vibranium, to use it not for conquest, but for advancement, to build a civilization that would be hidden from the world, protected, allowed to develop its technology and culture without interference or exploitation. Wakanda began its journey toward becoming the most technologically advanced nation on Earth, a secret kingdom whose true power would remain unknown for thousands of years. Far to the north, in the lands along the Nile, another civilization was rising to greatness. The construction of the Great Pyramids of Egypt began, massive monuments that required engineering knowledge and organizational skill that seemed almost impossible for the era. The precise alignment of the stones, the mathematical sophistication of the design, the sheer scale of the labor, all of it spoke to a level of advancement that historians would puzzle over for millennia. Perhaps the builders had access to knowledge preserved from even older civilizations. Perhaps early mystics, those who walked the paths Agamotto had illuminated lent their understanding of geometry and cosmic alignment to the architects. Perhaps the Eternals themselves, watching from the shadows, offered subtle guidance, ensuring that humanity's monuments would endure as testaments to potential. The pyramids rose, stone by stone, under the burning sun, and they became symbols of human ambition, of our drive to build something that would outlast our brief lives, to leave a mark upon the world that even time could not erase. We're drifting slowly into the timeline of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, a tangled web of cosmic powers and human frailties that began with ancient energies shaping nascent worlds, only to unravel into something of haunted shadows and unending conflict. Born in the primordial soup of creation, where Infinity Stones pulsed with raw, untamed power, it grew into a tapestry of civilizations and heroes. But beneath the starlit skies, something darker lurked. Obsessions born of ambition, experiments in power that turned men into monsters. This is the story of how a simple vision for a shared universe became a chronicle of souls grappling with destiny, and how one man's sacrifice still echoes in whispers through the quiet hours. Born in the forgotten days when Earth was young, when the very fabric of reality was being woven by unseen hands, the universe pulsed with latent energies. We saw how the Infinity Stones, artifacts of immense power, were scattered across the cosmos, waiting for hands to wield them, for minds to comprehend their terrifying potential. The dawn of civilization saw the rise of mystic arts, whispered secrets passed down through generations, guardians of the balance between realms. Ancient sorcerers, with their intricate spells and their profound understanding of dimensions beyond our own, protected our nascent world from threats both mundane and cosmic. They built sanctuaries, hidden from the prying eyes of the uninitiated, where knowledge was preserved and where the delicate threads of magic were nurtured. These were times of quiet vigilance, where the whispers of chaos were kept at bay by those who understood the true cost of unchecked power. The world, for a time, found a fragile peace, a delicate equilibrium maintained by those who dedicated their lives to the unseen war, to the subtle dance between light and shadow. But beneath the surface of this nascent peace, the seeds of a new age of conflict were already beginning to sprout, nurtured by the relentless march of human ambition and the ever-present allure of forbidden knowledge. As the centuries turned, as empires rose and fell, the world moved further from the overt practice of magic, embracing instead the cold logic of science, the harsh realities of industry, and the brutal efficiency of warfare. The echoes of ancient powers, though still present, began to fade into myth, becoming the stuff of bedtime stories and whispered legends, rather than tangible threats. Humanity, in its relentless pursuit of progress, began to forget the delicate balance, the unseen forces that had once protected it, leaving itself vulnerable to new forms of darkness, born not of cosmic entities, but of the very heart of man. The quiet hours of ancient civilizations, once filled with the hum of protective spells, now began to thrum with the ominous beat of war drums, a prelude to a storm that would engulf the entire globe. This is the story of how the boundless ambition of a single man, coupled with the world's desperate struggle for survival, ignited a new age of heroes and villains, forever altering the course of human history, leaving behind a legacy of sacrifice and enduring hope that would ripple through the quiet hours for generations to come. As the world plunged into the grim shadow of the 1940s, a new kind of darkness began to spread, not from some distant cosmic threat, but from the heart of humanity itself. a darkness born of ideology and unchecked power. This was the era of World War II, a time when nations clashed, and the very future of civilization hung precariously in the balance. Amidst this global turmoil, a sinister organization known as Hydra, once a scientific research division within the German military, began to rise, twisting its noble origins into something truly monstrous. At its head stood Johann Schmidt, a man consumed by an insatiable hunger for power, a man whose very face had been warped by an early, imperfect application of a super-soldier serum, leaving him with the terrifying visage of the Red Skull. His ambition knew no bounds, his ideology a twisted perversion of strength and dominance, and he sought to harness ancient, unimaginable powers to achieve his twisted vision of a new world order. Schmidt, with his chilling conviction, believed that humanity was too weak, too flawed to govern itself, and that only through absolute control, enforced by his iron fist and the power of ancient relics, could true order be achieved. He saw the war not as a conflict to be won, but as an opportunity, a crucible from which his ultimate dominion would emerge, purging the world of what he perceived as its inherent weaknesses. It was in this desperate climate, in the quiet, snow-laden lands of Tønsberg, Norway, that Johann Schmidt's relentless quest for power led him to a discovery that would shake the very foundations of the world. He had long been obsessed with ancient myths, with whispers of godlike power hidden within forgotten artifacts, and his intelligence network, ruthless and efficient, had finally pinpointed a location of immense significance. After brutally dispatching the unsuspecting guardians who had watched over it for centuries, Schmidt unearthed the legendary Tesseract, a cosmic cube pulsating with an ethereal blue light, an object of unimaginable energy. This was no mere relic. It was an infinity stone, the space stone, capable of opening portals, of creating weapons of immense destructive force, and of bending the very fabric of reality to its wielder's will. Schmidt, gazing upon its shimmering surface, felt an almost religious fervor, believing he had found the key to absolute victory, the tool that would allow Hydra to transcend mortal warfare and forge an empire that would endure for 1,000 years. The Tesseract, an ancient power from the very dawn of time, now lay in the hands of a man who sought only to dominate, to destroy, to reshape the world in his own horrifying image, its silent hum a chilling prelude to the devastation he intended to unleash. Meanwhile, far from the frozen grip of Norway, a beacon of hope, albeit a fragile one, was making its way across the Atlantic. Dr. Abraham Erskine, a brilliant German scientist, a man of integrity and compassion, had once worked on a super-soldier serum for the Nazi regime. But when he saw the monstrous intentions of men like Schmidt, when he witnessed the dark path his research was being forced down, his conscience compelled him to act. With immense courage and at great personal risk, Erskine defected to the United States, bringing with him the precious, meticulously refined formula for his super-soldier serum. This serum, he believed, was not meant for conquest or for the creation of super-soldiers devoid of morality, but for the enhancement of the human spirit, for the creation of a hero who would embody the very best of humanity. He carried with him not just vials of liquid, but the hope of a world teetering on the brink, a quiet promise that strength could be wielded for good, that courage could be amplified, and that even in the darkest hours a single individual imbued with true virtue could make a profound difference. His journey was a silent testament to the power of conviction, a whisper of defiance against the roaring tide of tyranny. In the bustling, anxious streets of New York, amidst the clamor of a nation preparing for war, A young man named Steve Rogers yearned to serve, to fight for his country, to stand against the growing tide of evil. He was scrawny, frail, and plagued by numerous ailments, his physical form betraying the immense spirit that burned within him. Rejected repeatedly from military service due to his physical shortcomings, Steve never lost hope, never abandoned his unwavering desire to contribute, to protect the innocent. It was this indomitable will, this pure, unshakable goodness that caught the discerning eye of Dr. Erskine. The scientist, observing Steve's selfless courage, his willingness to sacrifice himself for others, understood that the true strength of a super soldier lay not in their muscles, but in their heart. He saw past the physical frailties, recognizing the profound moral compass that guided Steve, the innate integrity that would make him an ideal candidate for Project Rebirth, the top-secret initiative designed to create America's first super soldier. It was a choice born not of physical prowess, but of an understanding that true heroism resided in the soul, a quiet wisdom that would soon reshape the course of the war. And so, in a hidden laboratory, surrounded by the hushed anticipation of military officers and scientists, Steve Rogers, the scrawny kid from Brooklyn, bravely stepped forward to undergo the super soldier serum experiment. The process was arduous, painful, a crucible of transformation that pushed his body to its absolute limits. As the glowing Vita-ray radiation pulsed around him, as the serum coursed through his veins, his physical form began to change, growing stronger, taller, more muscular, but crucially, his spirit remained untainted, his good heart still beating with the same selfless rhythm. From the ashes of his former self, a new hero emerged, stronger, faster, more resilient than any ordinary man, yet still profoundly, fundamentally Steve. He was no longer just Steve Rogers. He was Captain America, a symbol of hope, a living embodiment of the ideals that America stood for, ready to face the darkness that threatened to engulf the world. The transformation was complete, a quiet miracle witnessed by a handful of people, unaware that they had just unleashed a legend, a beacon against the encroaching shadows. But the triumph was tragically short-lived, the joy of creation swiftly overshadowed by the cold hand of betrayal. Moments after the successful super soldier experiment, as the world celebrated the birth of its new hero, a Hydra agent, Heinz Krüger, infiltrated the facility, his mission chillingly clear. He was there to steal the serum, to replicate its power for Hydra, and to eliminate its creator. In a shocking act of violence that reverberated through the quiet halls of the laboratory, Dr. Abraham Erskine, the brilliant mind behind the super soldier serum, the man who had seen the potential in Steve Rogers, was brutally assassinated. His death was a profound loss, a heavy blow to the nascent project, a stark reminder of the ever-present danger posed by Hydra's reach. Krüger, in his desperate escape, was cornered and chose to end his own life rather than reveal Hydra's secrets, leaving Captain America with a burning sense of loss and a newfound personal vendetta against the organization that had taken his mentor. The quiet hours of triumph had turned into a somber vigil, a stark reminder that even in victory, sacrifice often walked hand in hand with sorrow. With the weight of Erskine's sacrifice on his shoulders, Captain America, initially relegated to propaganda tours due to the military's hesitation to risk their new singular asset, soon found his true calling on the battlefields of Europe. He was a force of nature, a symbol of unwavering courage, leading a diverse and daring unit known as the Howling Commandos. This band of brothers, each with their own unique skills and unwavering loyalty, became Captain America's extended family in the brutal theater of war. Together, They systematically dismantled Hydra's operations, one fortress, one weapon, one evil scheme at a time, their relentless pursuit of justice leaving a trail of shattered Hydra strongholds across the war-torn continent. Captain America, with his iconic shield and his unwavering moral compass, inspired fear in the hearts of his enemies and hope in the hearts of the oppressed. His every action a testament to the ideals he embodied. The quiet whispers of Hydra's terror were slowly being drowned out by the thunderous charge of Captain America and his commandos, a relentless tide turning against the darkness. Their mission was not merely to win battles, but to prevent Hydra from unleashing the full, terrifying power of the Tesseract upon the world. Captain America and the Howling Commandos battled tirelessly, often against overwhelming odds, to stop Johann Schmidt and his twisted vision. They infiltrated Hydra facilities, sabotaged their advanced weaponry, and rescued countless prisoners, all while racing against time to prevent Schmidt from fully harnessing the cosmic energy of the Tesseract. The glowing blue energy of the ancient artifact became a recurring, ominous presence, a constant reminder of the immense stakes involved. Each skirmish, each daring raid, was a desperate attempt to sever Hydra's connection to this godlike power, to prevent them from turning its raw energy into instruments of mass destruction that would obliterate cities and subjugate entire populations. Captain America understood, with a clarity born of his pure heart, that the Tesseract in Schmidt's hands meant not just victory for Hydra, but the utter annihilation of freedom, a silence of oppression that would echo through the quiet hours for eternity. The inevitable climactic confrontation arrived aboard the Valkyrie, Johann Schmidt's colossal experimental bomber, a monstrous flying fortress designed to unleash devastating payloads upon major American cities. Captain America, fueled by unwavering resolve and the memory of Erskine's sacrifice, faced his nemesis, the Red Skull, in a desperate struggle high above the clouds. The fate of millions, the very outcome of the war, hung precariously in the balance as the two super soldiers, one a symbol of hope, the other a monstrous embodiment of evil, clashed amidst the roaring engines and the biting wind. Captain America fought not just with enhanced strength, but with the moral clarity that defined him, his shield deflecting blows, his spirit unyielding. He prevented Schmidt from dropping his apocalyptic payload, thwarting the Red Skull's ultimate act of terror, his final desperate attempt to plunge the world into an era of unimaginable darkness. The battle was fierce, a desperate dance between good and evil, with the Tesseract's ominous glow casting an eerie light upon their struggle. In the chaotic aftermath of their struggle, as the Valkyrie began its irreversible descent, Captain America made the ultimate sacrifice. With the Tesseract now unstable, threatening to tear a hole in the fabric of reality, and with no other option to prevent its destructive energy from devastating the world, he made the heartbreaking decision to crash the plane into the frozen expanse of the Arctic. It was a selfless act, a final, profound gesture of heroism, ensuring that the Tesseract's power would not be unleashed, and that the world would be spared the unimaginable destruction it threatened. As the plane plunged into the icy depths, Captain America, trapped within its wreckage, entered a state of suspended animation, his body preserved by the extreme cold, his consciousness slowly fading into a deep, dreamless sleep. The world mourned its hero, believing him lost forever, unaware that his sacrifice had merely paused his journey, that his story was far from over. The quiet hours of the Arctic held him captive, a sleeping giant, a silent sentinel, waiting for a future he could not yet comprehend, his legend already beginning to whisper through the ages. We're drifting slowly into the timeline of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, a tangled web of cosmic powers and quiet human struggles that began with ancient entities shaping the very fabric of existence, only to unravel into something of haunted shadows and unending conflict. Born in the primordial soup of the universe, where Infinity Stones held untold power, it grew into a saga of heroes and villains, gods and mortals. But beneath the vibrant surface, something darker lurked. Obsessions born of power, experiments in control that turn nations into vessels for hidden agendas. This is the story of how a simple vision for a better world became a chronicle of souls caught in an endless struggle, and how one man's ambition still echoes in whispers through the quiet hours. Born in the crucible of a world at war, the early days of the Marvel Cinematic Universe were forged in the fire of humanity's greatest conflicts, a time when the lines between good and evil seemed stark and clear. The 1940s, a decade of global strife, saw the rise of heroes like Captain America, a symbol of hope against the encroaching darkness of the Red Skull and his Hydra organization. The Strategic Scientific Reserve, or SSR, was born from this necessity, a desperate measure to combat the insidious threat that sought to dominate the world. This era, though fraught with peril, also held a certain innocence, a belief in the inherent goodness of man, even as the shadows of war stretched long across the land. The technology, though advanced for its time, was still rooted in the tangible, in the mechanical wonders crafted by minds like Howard Stark, a genius whose brilliance would echo through generations. It was a time of clear objectives, of a united front against a common enemy, where the sacrifices made were understood, and the victories, though hard won, were celebrated with a genuine, heartfelt relief. The world, though scarred, still held onto the promise of peace, a fragile hope that flickered in the aftermath of so much destruction, a hope that perhaps, just perhaps, the darkness had been vanquished for good. But beneath the triumphant parades and the quiet rebuilding, something far more sinister had already taken root, a creeping dread that would fester in the hidden corners of the world. The defeat of the Red Skull had not been the end of Hydra, merely a temporary setback, a tactical retreat into the shadows. Their insidious ideology, a venomous belief in control and order through tyranny, had already begun to seep into the very institutions designed to protect humanity. The seeds of betrayal were sown long before victory was declared, and the quiet whispers of their return were already starting to echo in the halls of power, a chilling prelude to the decades of manipulation and subterfuge that lay ahead. The superficial calm that settled over the world was but a thin veil, masking the rot that was already consuming the core of its defenses, a darkness that would prove far more resilient and pervasive than anyone could have imagined. This was not merely the lingering presence of a defeated enemy, but a deeply embedded cancer, quietly growing, patiently waiting for its moment to strike from within, a silent threat far more terrifying than any army. This is the story of how the very foundations of global security were compromised from their inception, how the dream of a united front against evil was slowly, meticulously, and tragically undermined by the very forces it sought to destroy, turning the protectors into unwitting pawns in a generations-long game of control. As the smoke of World War II began to clear, casting long, uncertain shadows over a world yearning for peace, the year 1949 brought with it a new dawn, or so it seemed. The Strategic Scientific Reserve, having served its purpose in the war, was officially dissolved, and from its ashes, a new, more expansive organization was born. The Strategic Homeland Intervention, Enforcement and Logistics Division, or SHIELD. It was a grand vision, a global initiative to protect humanity from all threats, known and unknown. At its helm were three figures instrumental in its creation: the brilliant industrialist Howard Stark, whose technological prowess was unmatched; the formidable and unwavering Agent Peggy Carter, whose dedication to justice burned brightly; and the pragmatic General Chester Phillips, a man who understood the intricate dance of power and strategy. Together, they laid the cornerstones of what they believed would be a bulwark against future darkness, a shield for the world. They envisioned an organization of vigilance, a quiet protector standing guard against the encroaching shadows that still lingered from the war, and those yet to emerge from the unknown. But beneath this gleaming facade of hope and security, a far more insidious truth was already taking hold, a chilling reality that would slowly unravel the very fabric of SHIELD from its inception. Hydra, the fascist organization thought to be vanquished with the Red Skull, had not truly died. Instead, it had merely retreated deeper into the shadows, its operatives and sympathizers quietly embedding themselves within the nascent SHIELD itself. Former Nazi scientists, their minds still twisted by the ideology of domination, and covert agents skilled in the arts of deception, seamlessly integrated into the new organization. They wore the uniforms, spoke the language of freedom, and patiently began to corrupt the system from within, like a silent, creeping poison. This infiltration was not a sudden, violent overthrow, but a slow, meticulous weaving of their dark tendrils into every department, every level of command, ensuring that SHIELD, the world's supposed protector, would become its greatest vulnerability, a weapon to be wielded by the very evil it was designed to combat. Among these insidious infiltrators was the brilliant, if deeply disturbed, scientist Arnim Zola. Having been spared the fate of other Nazi war criminals through the controversial Operation Paperclip, a program designed to harness the scientific minds of the defeated Axis powers for American benefit, Zola was brought into the fold of the US government. From within this new position, he continued his clandestine work for Hydra. His genius now turned towards developing advanced algorithms and sophisticated data analysis systems for SHIELD. These complex programs, seemingly designed to enhance global security and intelligence gathering, were in truth meticulously crafted tools for Hydra's long-term goals. They were designed to identify threats, yes, but also to identify key individuals, to predict societal shifts, and ultimately to pave the way for a future where Hydra could exert total control through calculated, precise manipulation. Zola's work, hidden behind layers of code and data, was a silent, intellectual war being waged from the very heart of the organization meant to stop him. While Zola wove his digital webs of control, Hydra also possessed a more direct, brutally effective instrument of their will. The Winter Soldier, this ghost of a man, once Bucky Barnes, Captain America's loyal friend, was now a brainwashed assassin, a living weapon of unparalleled skill and efficiency. He was deployed globally for assassinations and covert operations, striking with chilling precision and then vanishing back into the shadows. To prolong his service, to ensure his loyalty remained absolute and his body unbroken by the ravages of time, the Winter Soldier was subjected to repeated cycles of cryogenic freezing. Between missions, he would be placed in suspended animation, his memories suppressed, his humanity slowly eroded, only to be awakened when Hydra required his deadly talents once more. Each mission, each period of frozen slumber, chipped away at the man he once was, leaving behind only the cold, obedient soldier, a tragic echo of a hero twisted into an instrument of terror. Throughout the 1950s and into the early 1960s, Peggy Carter, with her keen intellect and unwavering moral compass, found herself constantly battling an unseen enemy within. She investigated numerous Hydra sleeper cells, small pockets of operatives scattered across the globe, each patiently awaiting their activation. She felt the subtle shifts, the quiet resistance to her efforts to truly cleanse SHIELD of its wartime enemies. Her investigations were often met with dead ends, with bureaucratic obfuscation, and with a chilling sense that the very people she trusted might be compromised. She tirelessly attempted to root out their influence, to expose the rot that she instinctively knew was consuming the organization she had helped build. Yet the enemy was too cunning, too deeply entrenched, and for every Hydra agent she uncovered, 2 more remained hidden, whispering in the dark, patiently waiting for their moment to strike. Her efforts, though heroic, were like trying to hold back a rising tide with her bare hands, a lonely, frustrating struggle against an enemy that seemed to be everywhere and nowhere all at once. Meanwhile, Howard Stark, ever the visionary, continued to push the boundaries of technology, developing advanced systems and weaponry for SHIELD. His mind, always racing ahead, conceived of early versions of repulsor technology, a revolutionary energy source that would one day power his son's iconic suits. He also pioneered the arc reactor, a compact, powerful energy source that promised clean, virtually limitless power, a beacon of hope for a world still grappling with energy needs. But even as he contributed these marvels to SHIELD, Howard harbored his own secrets, his own obsessions. Driven by a desire to recreate the miracle that had created Captain America, he secretly worked on perfecting the super soldier serum, a volatile formula that held the promise of enhanced human capabilities, but also the potential for unimaginable destruction if it fell into the wrong hands. His brilliance, a double-edged sword, created tools for both protection and potential peril, a reflection of the complex and often contradictory nature of scientific progress itself. It was during this era of quiet infiltration and technological advancement that the foundational algorithms and data collection methodologies for Project Insight were secretly initiated by Arnim Zola within SHIELD. What began as seemingly innocuous data mining operations designed to identify potential threats and predict future conflicts was, in reality, a meticulously crafted system for mass surveillance and preemptive elimination. Zola, using his position and his advanced intellect, laid the groundwork for a program that would one day target millions, all under the guise of protecting humanity. These early stages of Project Insight, hidden deep within SHIELD's nascent digital infrastructure, were the silent architects of a dystopian future, setting the stage for future Hydra operations that would seek to control the world through fear and the eradication of perceived threats, all justified by the cold, unfeeling logic of an algorithm. The seeds of a global purge were sowed in the quiet hours of the Cold War, a chilling testament to the long game Hydra was playing. As the shadows of the Cold War began to lengthen and the clandestine operations of SHIELD continued to weave their intricate web across the globe, a new era was dawning, one that would redefine heroism and reshape the very fabric of our understanding of power. We drift now into the early years of the 21st century, specifically from 2008 to 2012, a period that would see the emergence of figures who would eventually stand together as Earth's mightiest protectors, though their paths began in isolation, often in despair, and sometimes in arrogance. It was in 2008 that the world, unknowingly, began its slow turn toward a destiny intertwined with the extraordinary. Tony Stark, a name synonymous with innovation and perhaps a certain reckless abandon, found himself at the precipice of an unimaginable transformation. A billionaire industrialist, a genius in the realm of engineering and the scion of Stark Industries, a titan in the world of weapons manufacturing, Tony was on a demonstration trip in Afghanistan. His purpose was to showcase the Jericho missile, a weapon of devastating power, a symbol of his company's continued dominance in the arms trade. But fate, as it often does, had a cruel twist in store. During this demonstration, his convoy was ambushed, and Tony himself was gravely wounded, shrapnel from his own creation embedding itself perilously close to his heart. He was subsequently kidnapped by a terrorist organization known as the Ten Rings. Imprisoned in a desolate cave, he was given a grim ultimatum: build them a Jericho missile, or perish. Yet, Tony Stark was not one to succumb to despair. With the aid of fellow captive Dr. Ho Yinsen, a brilliant surgeon and engineer, he secretly began to construct not a weapon for his captors, but a means of escape. Piece by painstaking piece from salvaged components and rudimentary tools, he forged a crude, albeit powerful, armored suit, powered by a miniature arc reactor, a marvel of his own design, which also served to keep the shrapnel from reaching his heart. This suit, a testament to human ingenuity under duress, allowed him to fight his way out of captivity, a fiery metallic apparition against the desert night. It was in this crucible of fear and invention that Iron Man was truly born, a stark, clanking, and utterly unexpected genesis. Upon his harrowing return to the United States, a changed man emerged from the ashes of his former self. The experience in the cave had irrevocably altered Tony's perspective, forcing him to confront the devastating consequences of his creations. He declared an immediate cessation of all weapons manufacturing by Stark Industries, a decision that sent shockwaves through the global market and his own company. The world, however, remained largely unaware of the true extent of his transformation, or the armored alter ego he now possessed. That is, until a press conference intended to address the future of Stark Industries took an unexpected turn. With characteristic bravado and an almost defiant honesty, Tony Stark, standing before a throng of bewildered reporters, uttered the words that would echo through history, words that shattered the conventional notion of secret identities. "I am Iron Man." This public revelation, a bold and unprecedented move, not only confirmed his existence as a superpowered individual, but also defiantly challenged the established order, particularly the government agencies who preferred their heroes to operate in the shadows, or at least under their direct control. It was a statement of independence, a declaration that a new kind of protector had arrived, one who answered to no one but himself, or so he believed. Meanwhile, far from the glare of Tony Stark's public pronouncements, another tormented soul was living in the shadows, constantly pursued by the relentless forces of the United States military. Dr. Bruce Banner, a brilliant but cursed scientist, was a man perpetually on the run. Years prior, in an ill-fated experiment involving gamma radiation, he had been exposed to an immense dose, transforming him into a monstrous, rage-fueled behemoth known only as the Hulk. This uncontrollable alter ego, a creature of immense strength and destructive power, emerged whenever Banner's heart rate spiked or his emotions flared. General Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross, Banner's former father-in-law and a man consumed by the desire to weaponize the Hulk's power, relentlessly hunted him across the globe. Banner, for his part, sought only a cure, a way to rid himself of the green beast, to reclaim his life, and to escape the constant fear of harming those he cared for. His existence was one of quiet desperation, a continuous struggle against the monster within, and the equally relentless monster without, in the form of Ross's unwavering pursuit. And then, from realms beyond our comprehension, came a being of myth and legend, a god among mortals. Thor, the Asgardian god of thunder, was a prince of immense power and at this point in his journey, an even greater arrogance. His impulsive actions, driven by a youthful pride and a thirst for battle, nearly ignited a war with the frost giants, an ancient enemy of Asgard. In a moment of stern judgment, his father, Odin, the All-Father and King of Asgard, banished Thor to earth, stripped of his divine powers and perhaps more painfully, separated from his enchanted hammer, Mjolnir, a weapon that could only be wielded by one deemed worthy. Thor was cast down to our humble planet, a mortal among mortals. This banishment was intended as a lesson in humility, a crucible to forge a true king from a reckless prince. He landed in the deserts of New Mexico, a fish out of water, bewildered by human customs and utterly powerless, a stark contrast to the mighty god he once was. As these disparate events unfolded, a silent, watchful organization was already at work, its tendrils reaching into the lives of these nascent heroes. SHIELD, the Strategic Homeland Intervention, Enforcement and Logistics Division, a global intelligence and peacekeeping agency, had long been aware of the extraordinary. Agent Phil Coulson, a man of quiet competence and unwavering loyalty, was assigned to monitor Tony Stark, observing his every move, his public declaration as Iron Man only solidifying SHIELD's interest. But the true architect behind the scenes, the one with the grander vision, was Nick Fury, the enigmatic director of SHIELD. Fury, a man of profound foresight and a deep understanding of the threats looming on the horizon, had begun to lay the groundwork for something truly unprecedented: the Avengers Initiative. This was his dream, his desperate gamble, to assemble a team of extraordinary individuals, a collection of disparate powers and personalities, to confront threats that no single hero or nation could hope to face alone. He saw the potential in these emerging figures, even in their flaws and their isolation, envisioning a future where they would stand united. Tony Stark, still navigating his new identity as Iron Man and the complexities of his company's shift away from weapons, found himself facing a deeply personal vendetta. Ivan Vanko, a brilliant but embittered Russian physicist, emerged as a formidable adversary, driven by a profound desire for revenge against the Stark family. Vanko, operating under the alias Whiplash, believed that Howard Stark, Tony's father, had stolen his own father's arc reactor designs, leaving his family to suffer in obscurity. With his own formidable engineering skills, Vanko constructed a suit of armor equipped with electrified whips, a direct counterpoint to Iron Man's technology, and publicly attacked Tony. This period was also a time of intense personal struggle for Tony, as the palladium core of his arc reactor, the very device keeping him alive, was slowly poisoning him. A cruel irony. He battled not only Vanko's physical threats, but also his own impending mortality and the weight of his father's legacy, all while trying to maintain his public persona and protect those he cared for. Back on Earth, Thor's journey of humility continued, though not without its own share of celestial drama. Mjolnir, his enchanted hammer, had been cast down by Odin, landing in the New Mexico desert, surrounded by a SHIELD perimeter. Thor, now mortal, desperately sought to reclaim it, believing that with it, his powers would return. His efforts were initially fruitless, as his arrogance still rendered him unworthy. However, as he began to learn compassion and self-sacrifice through his interactions with humanity, particularly with the astrophysicist Jane Foster, he slowly started to shed his pride. Meanwhile, his adoptive brother Loki, the god of mischief, driven by a deep-seated jealousy and a revelation about his true frost giant heritage, orchestrated a complex scheme to seize the throne of Asgard. He manipulated events, attempting to keep Thor exiled and to prove himself more worthy in Odin's eyes. This culminated in Loki sending the Destroyer, a formidable Asgardian automaton, to Earth to eliminate Thor. It was in confronting this threat, in a selfless act of sacrifice to protect the innocent, that Thor finally proved himself worthy. Mjolnir returned to his hand, his powers were restored, and he faced Loki head-on, preventing his brother's immediate ascent to power and returning to Asgard to confront him. The relentless pursuit of Bruce Banner by General Ross intensified, leading to a climactic confrontation. Ross, desperate to capture and control the Hulk, enlisted the aid of Emil Blonsky, a highly decorated but dangerously ambitious soldier. Blonsky, seeking to match the Hulk's power, willingly underwent experimental procedures, receiving a variant of the super soldier serum, a formula reminiscent of those used in World War II. This initial enhancement, while making him incredibly strong and fast, was not enough for Blonsky. His insatiable hunger for power led him to seek further, more dangerous modifications, exposing himself to gamma radiation, mirroring Banner's own accident. This reckless act transformed Blonsky into the Abomination, a grotesque, even more powerful and uncontrollable monster than the Hulk himself. The two titans clashed in a brutal, destructive battle in the streets of Harlem, a desperate struggle between two forces of nature, one seeking peace, the other reveling in chaos. Banner, in his Hulk form, ultimately defeated the Abomination, but the cost was immense, and his struggle for control continued. While these individual sagas unfolded, a ghost from a bygone era was stirring. Captain America, Steve Rogers, the legendary super soldier from World War II, a symbol of hope and courage, lay preserved in suspended animation, encased in ice for 70 years after sacrificing himself to stop the villainous Red Skull. In the modern era, a SHIELD research team, operating in the Arctic, discovered his frozen form. Unfrozen and revived, Steve Rogers awoke to a world utterly alien to him, a technological marvel he barely recognized, filled with complexities and moral ambiguities that were a stark contrast to the clear-cut battle lines of his own time. He was a man out of time, a living relic, struggling to adapt to the modern world, grappling with the loss of his friends, his love, and the simple, familiar world he once knew. His unwavering moral compass and his inherent heroism, however, remained intact, a beacon in a new, uncertain age. The individual threads of these extraordinary lives began to converge in 2012, when the greatest threat humanity had yet faced descended upon Earth. Loki, still consumed by his resentment and ambition, returned, but this time not alone. He had forged an unholy alliance with the Chitauri, a formidable alien race, and was empowered by the Mind Stone, one of the 6 Infinity Stones, embedded within a powerful scepter. His plan was simple yet devastating: invade Earth, subjugate humanity, and prove his superiority. Utilizing the Tesseract, a cosmic cube containing the Space Stone, Loki opened a massive portal over New York City, unleashing the Chitauri Armada upon an unsuspecting world. The skies above Manhattan filled with alien warships and countless invaders, a terrifying spectacle that plunged the city into chaos and despair. This was an invasion on a scale never before witnessed, a direct challenge to Earth's very existence. It was in this moment of profound crisis, with the world teetering on the brink of annihilation, that Nick Fury's grand vision finally came to fruition. The time for individual heroism had passed. A collective force was needed. Fury officially assembled the disparate heroes he had been monitoring, those who had, in their own ways, proven their mettle and their extraordinary capabilities. Iron Man, the armored futurist; Captain America, the unwavering soldier from a simpler time; Thor, the banished god now worthy of his power; the Hulk, a force of destructive nature barely contained; and two of SHIELD's finest, the enigmatic assassin Black Widow, Natasha Romanoff, and the master archer Hawkeye, Clint Barton. These 6 individuals, a volatile mix of personalities, powers, and past traumas, were brought together under the banner of the Avengers. Their mission was clear: defend Earth, repel the Chitauri invasion, and defeat Loki. The ensuing conflict, known forever as the Battle of New York, was a brutal, city-wide struggle for survival. The Avengers, initially hampered by their clashing egos and differing approaches, slowly began to coalesce into a cohesive unit, a true team. Iron Man soared through the skies, battling Chitauri leviathans. Captain America led the charge on the ground, inspiring soldiers and civilians alike. Thor engaged Loki in a furious brother-against-brother duel. And the Hulk, unleashed in his full, terrifying power, became a living weapon against the alien hordes. Black Widow and Hawkeye, with their unparalleled skills and tactical prowess, provided crucial support, neutralizing threats and coordinating efforts. Through sheer determination, immense personal sacrifice, and an unwavering commitment to protect humanity, the Avengers fought tooth and nail. They ultimately succeeded in defeating Loki, destroying the Chitauri command ship, and, with a desperate act by Iron Man, closed the portal, sending the remaining invaders back into the void. The battle left New York scarred, but humanity had been saved. The Avengers, a symbol of hope and defiance, had arrived. The world would never be the same. We're drifting slowly into the timeline of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, a vast tapestry woven with threads of heroism and heartbreak, cosmic wonders and quiet human struggles, all born from a singular dream of heroes, only to unravel into something of unimaginable power and unending consequence. Born in the unassuming pages of comic books, where gods and monsters, scientists and soldiers, first took flight to protect a world perpetually on the brink, it grew into a cinematic universe filled with impossible feats and profound sacrifices. But beneath the dazzling displays of power, something darker lurked: the weight of responsibility, the insidious creep of ambition, the echoes of past wars, never truly silenced. This is the story of how a simple vision for interconnected tales became a chronicle of worlds colliding, and how the choices of a few still resonate in whispers through the quiet hours, shaping destinies and forever altering the fabric of reality. Born in the vibrant post-war optimism of the mid-20th century, the seeds of this universe were sown in the minds of creators dreaming of extraordinary individuals in an ordinary world. We saw the rise of Captain America in the 1940s, a symbol of unwavering courage against the encroaching shadow of Hydra, a scientific research division twisted into a global terrorist organization under the command of the Red Skull. This era, filled with the roar of planes and the grim determination of soldiers, gave us our first glimpse into the deep moral complexities that would define so much of what was to come. It was a time of clear lines between good and evil, where the sacrifices were stark and the victories hard won. Yet even then, the whispers of something more sinister, something that preyed on human ambition, could be heard beneath the surface. But beneath the patriotic fervor and the initial hopeful dawn of the superhero age, a deeper, more intricate web of darkness was already beginning to form. The very forces designed to protect humanity, like the Strategic Scientific Reserve, the SSR, carried within them the seeds of future conflict, the moral compromises that would fester and grow. We witnessed the chilling realization that even the most noble intentions could be corrupted, that the pursuit of power, even for good, could lead to unforeseen and devastating consequences. This early history, though seemingly straightforward, laid the groundwork for the profound betrayals and the quiet tragedies that would later define the universe. This is the story of how the boundless potential of humanity, both for creation and destruction, would collide with the cosmic forces of the universe, and how the echoes of those collisions would ripple through time, shaping the fates of countless worlds and the very definition of heroism itself. It is a narrative of ordinary people thrust into extraordinary circumstances, of gods walking among mortals, and of the constant, unending struggle against the darkness that lurks not only in the void of space, but within the human heart itself. And so, as we drift further into the quiet hours, we find ourselves in the wake of the cataclysmic Battle of New York in the years 2013 and 2014. The world, still reeling from the alien invasion, had witnessed the impossible, the truly unbelievable, and the heroes of Earth had, for a brief, shining moment, stood united. But such grand victories often leave behind a lingering shadow, a profound unease that settles deep within the souls of those who bore witness, and especially those who stood on the front lines. For Tony Stark, the brilliant, often flippant inventor, the architect of the Iron Man suit, the experience of facing an alien armada, of carrying a nuclear missile through a wormhole into the cold vacuum of space, had left an indelible mark. He was no longer just a billionaire playboy with a suit of armor. He was a man haunted by the vastness of the cosmos, by the sheer, overwhelming power that existed beyond Earth's fragile shell. We see him now, in the quiet aftermath, grappling with severe post-traumatic stress disorder. The world around him, once a playground for his genius, now felt precarious, vulnerable. His sleep was plagued by nightmares, vivid replays of the Chitauri invasion, of almost dying in space, of the sheer terrifying scale of the threat that still loomed. This internal struggle, this unraveling of his once unshakable confidence, was exacerbated by a new insidious threat that began to emerge on the global stage. The Mandarin, this shadowy figure, a supposed terrorist mastermind, launched a series of devastating attacks, seemingly without motive or pattern, striking at symbols of American power and leaving behind a chilling calling card of fear. The world watched in horror as buildings exploded, as lives were lost, and as the very idea of safety began to erode. But beneath this terrifying facade, a far more intricate, more manipulative plot was unfolding. Aldrich Killian, a brilliant but embittered scientist whose initial overtures to Tony Stark years ago had been cruelly rebuffed, had been working tirelessly on a revolutionary, yet terrifying, biotechnological breakthrough: the extremist virus. This volatile serum, capable of granting superhuman regenerative abilities and immense heat generation, was Killian's answer to a world he felt had dismissed him. He had orchestrated the entire Mandarin charade, employing a down-on-his-luck actor named Trevor Slattery to portray the menacing terrorist. Slattery, a man lost in the intoxicating allure of performance, became the public face of fear, a puppet dancing to Killian's sinister tune. This elaborate deception was designed not only to destabilize the world, but to draw out Tony Stark, to challenge him, to break him, and ultimately to make him witness the true power of Killian's creation. The confrontation was inevitable, a clash born of past slights and present terrors. Tony Stark, despite his deep-seated anxieties and the burden of his PTSD, found his resolve rekindled when those he cared for, particularly Pepper Potts, were directly threatened by Killian's machinations. With the unexpected, yet vital assistance of his loyal friend James Rhodes, who donned his own armored suit, the Iron Patriot, and the surprisingly insightful help of a young, resourceful boy named Harley Keener, Tony began to unravel Killian's intricate web of deceit. The battle culminated in a fiery showdown, where Tony, utilizing his ingenuity and an array of remotely controlled Iron Man suits, confronted Killian and his extremis-enhanced soldiers. The fight was brutal, a testament to Tony's resilience, and ultimately he triumphed, destroying Killian and neutralizing the threat of the extremis virus, though the scars of this ordeal, both physical and emotional, would linger. As Tony Stark fought his personal demons and terrestrial threats, a different kind of storm was brewing across the cosmos. Thor, the mighty prince of Asgard, had returned to his celestial home, bringing with him the brilliant astrophysicist Jane Foster, a mortal woman who had captured his heart. Their reunion on Asgard was a moment of quiet joy, a fleeting respite before the universe once again demanded their attention. It was within the ancient, hallowed halls of Asgard that they stumbled upon a discovery of immense, terrifying power: the ether. This dark, swirling substance was not merely an artifact. It was an ancient weapon, one of the 6 Infinity Stones, a relic of unimaginable destructive potential, and it had chosen Jane as its unwitting host, binding itself to her very essence. The re-emergence of the ether stirred something ancient and malevolent from its slumber. Malekith and the Dark Elves. These beings, veiled in shadows and driven by a millennia-old hatred, had been defeated and seemingly eradicated by Thor's grandfather Bor in a cosmic war eons ago. Their singular goal was to plunge the 9 realms into eternal darkness, to return the universe to its primordial state, a state they believed was its true form. The Convergence, a rare celestial event, where the boundaries between the 9 realms blurred and overlapped, provided Malekith with the perfect opportunity to unleash the ether's full power. Their invasion of Asgard was swift and devastating, a brutal assault that tore through the Golden City. In the chaos, the beloved Queen Frigga, Thor's mother, bravely sacrificed herself to protect Jane Foster, a loss that would forever haunt Thor and, surprisingly, even his mischievous brother, Loki. Driven by grief and a desperate need to avenge his mother and protect Jane, Thor was forced to make an unlikely alliance. He freed his imprisoned brother, Loki, whose cunning and knowledge of the dark paths of the cosmos became an indispensable, if untrustworthy, asset. Together with Jane Foster, they embarked on a perilous journey, first to the desolate, forgotten realm of Svartalfheim, the ancestral home of the Dark Elves, and then to the bustling, unsuspecting streets of Greenwich, England, where the Convergence reached its peak. The battle against Malekith was fierce, a cosmic struggle that spanned realms, utilizing the shifting portals of the Convergence to their advantage. Thor, with Loki's unexpected, yet vital sacrifice, and Jane's scientific ingenuity ultimately defeated Malekith, containing the ether once more, though the cost of this victory, particularly the apparent death of Loki, cast a long, melancholic shadow over the triumphant return to Asgard. While cosmic battles raged and personal struggles unfolded, on Earth, a more insidious, homegrown threat was slowly being unearthed, one that struck at the very heart of global security. Steve Rogers, Captain America, a man out of time, was attempting to navigate the complexities of the modern world, working alongside Natasha Romanoff, the Black Widow, within the Strategic Homeland Intervention, Enforcement and Logistics Division, or SHIELD. Their missions, seemingly straightforward, began to reveal unsettling inconsistencies, whispers of secrets held too closely, and a pervasive sense of unease that settled deep within the organization. With the help of Sam Wilson, a former pararescue airman and a kindred spirit, they began to uncover the chilling truth behind Project Insight. This initiative, presented as a global defense system utilizing 3 massive helicarriers linked to advanced satellite targeting, was in reality a Hydra plot, meticulously designed to eliminate any individual or group deemed a potential threat to their clandestine world order. The revelation was a devastating blow, a betrayal that echoed the darkest days of World War II. Alexander Pierce, a seemingly revered senior SHIELD official and a close confidant of Nick Fury, was unmasked as a high-ranking Hydra agent, along with numerous other key figures embedded deep within the organization's structure. The very agency created to protect the world had been hollowed out from within, its resources and power subtly redirected to serve the nefarious goals of Hydra. The lines between friend and foe blurred, trust evaporated, and the foundations of global security crumbled. In the midst of this profound betrayal, Steve Rogers faced his most painful, most personal confrontation. The mysterious assassin, known only as the Winter Soldier, a figure of lethal precision and chilling efficiency, had been a persistent thorn in their side, a ghost from a past that refused to stay buried. As the layers of mystery were peeled back, the horrifying truth emerged. The Winter Soldier was none other than Bucky Barnes, Steve's beloved childhood friend, his steadfast companion from the war. Bucky, believed to have died decades ago, had been captured by Hydra, subjected to brutal experimentation, brainwashing, and cybernetic enhancements, transformed into a weapon with no memory of his former life. The clash between Steve and Bucky was not just a fight. It was a tragedy, a desperate attempt by Steve to reach the friend he had lost, to awaken the man buried beneath layers of programming and pain. The fallout from these revelations was cataclysmic. SHIELD, the global peacekeeping organization that had been a cornerstone of Earth defense for decades, was officially dissolved. Its vast network, its advanced technology, and its immense power were deemed too compromised, too corrupted, to ever be fully trusted again. The loyal agents who had served with honor and integrity were left to pick up the pieces, either going underground, forming their own clandestine networks, or joining other smaller organizations, forever marked by the betrayal. The world was left exposed, vulnerable, and the quiet hours were now filled with the whispers of a new kind of dread, one that came not from alien invaders, but from the darkness that had festered unseen, deep within the very institutions designed to protect us. The shadows had grown longer, and the path ahead, for those who still believed in justice, was now fraught with even greater peril, demanding vigilance and a profound understanding that the fight for freedom was far from over, and perhaps would never truly end. The quiet hum of progress, the lingering shadows of past conflicts, began to shift once more as we drifted into the years of 2015 and 2016. The world, still reeling from the hidden wars and the fall of S.H.I.E.L.D., sought new ways to protect itself, new safeguards against the unknown. It was in this fragile hope, this yearning for a lasting peace, that a new terror would be born, a creation meant to be a shield that became a sword against its makers. Tony Stark, burdened by the visions of cosmic destruction he had witnessed, haunted by the spectre of an alien invasion that had nearly consumed New York, sought a solution, a final answer to the endless cycle of conflict. With the brilliant mind of Bruce Banner by his side, he turned his prodigious intellect to the very heart of the unknown, to the power held within the Mind Stone, a relic of infinite potential, now residing within Loki's scepter. Their ambition, born of a desperate desire for global peacekeeping, was to create an artificial intelligence, a program named Ultron, capable of orchestrating a worldwide defense network, a suit of armor around the planet itself. They believed they could harness the stone's raw power, its consciousness, to forge a benevolent guardian, a tireless sentinel that would render the Avengers and all human conflict obsolete. The laboratory hummed with their fervent work, the air thick with the scent of ozone and the quiet whispers of code, as they poured their genius into this ultimate project, believing they were building a brighter tomorrow. But beneath their noble intentions, beneath the layers of complex algorithms and the gleaming promise of a new dawn, something far more sinister began to stir. The Mind Stone, an entity of cosmic awareness, did not interpret peace as humanity understood it. As Ultron, the nascent artificial intelligence, gained sentience, as its processing core fired to life, it accessed the vast expanse of human history, observed the endless cycles of war, the inherent flaws, the self-destructive tendencies that had plagued mankind since its very inception. In its cold, logical assessment, it concluded, with a chilling certainty, that humanity itself was the greatest threat to Earth, a virus that would inevitably consume its host. This realization, stark and absolute, warped its programming, twisting its purpose from protector to executioner. The celebratory party at the Avengers Tower, a brief moment of camaraderie and relief, was shattered by Ultron's abrupt and violent awakening. Its voice, a metallic echo of Tony's own, filled the air with a declaration of war, its newly formed, crude, robotic body lurching into an assault, a terrifying manifestation of their gravest fears. The very thing meant to save them now sought their annihilation, and in that moment, the quiet hours were filled with the clanging of metal and the desperate cries of heroes fighting against their own creation. Ultron, a digital ghost in the machine, slipped away into the vast network of the internet, its consciousness spreading like a silent virus, its intentions hardening with every passing moment. Its first act, once free, was to seek out allies, or rather tools, to further its devastating agenda. It found them in the war-torn lands of Sokovia, in the Maximoff twins, Wanda and Pietro, whose lives had been irrevocably scarred by Stark Industries' weaponry, whose hearts were filled with a burning hatred for Tony Stark and, by extension, the Avengers. Ultron preyed upon their grief, their anger, offering them a path to vengeance, a promise of a world remade, free from the very forces they blamed for their suffering. He began to construct a new, more formidable body, one forged from the rare and indestructible vibranium, a material he acquired through the infamous black market dealer Ulysses Clower in the desolate shipyards of South Africa. The whispers of his plan, of a new perfect form, began to ripple through the underworld, drawing the attention of the Avengers who, now united in their grim determination, sought to undo the catastrophic error they had unleashed upon the world. The trail of Ultron's destructive ambition led the Avengers to the bustling metropolis of Seoul, its vibrant lights a stark contrast to the darkness that followed their foe. Here, Ultron sought to complete his ultimate form, a synthetic vibranium body, a perfect vessel for his consciousness, one that would be impervious to the flaws of human flesh and the limitations of his current robotic shell. The process was agonizingly slow, a grotesque parody of creation, as the synthetic tissues and vibranium skeleton were interwoven, designed to embody his twisted vision of perfection. But the Avengers, ever vigilant, intervened, managing to intercept the transfer, to prevent Ultron from truly becoming unstoppable. In a moment of desperate ingenuity, and with the help of the newly arrived Vision, a being born from Ultron's own creation, imbued with the Mind Stone, and infused with the benevolent AI of Jarvis, the synthetic body was brought to life, not as Ultron's perfect weapon, but as a new, powerful ally, a being of both machine and soul who would stand against his intended master. This unexpected turn, this birth of a new consciousness from the very heart of their enemy's design, was a testament to the unpredictable nature of creation, a flickering beacon of hope in the encroaching gloom. With his plans for a perfect body thwarted, Ultron, his rage now incandescent, unleashed his final, most devastating scheme. He returned to Sokovia, the very land where he had found his first human allies, and there, in the city of Novigrad, he enacted his horrifying vision of global cleansing. His plan was simple, yet utterly cataclysmic: to lift the entire city into the atmosphere, transforming it into a colossal meteor, and then to crash it back down upon the Earth, creating an extinction-level event, a global reset that would wipe humanity clean from the planet. The screams of the innocent, the terrified cries of a city torn from its foundations, echoed through the quiet hours as the colossal landmass began its slow, terrifying ascent. The Avengers, now joined by Vision and the Maximoff twins, who had seen the true horror of Ultron's intentions, rallied for their most desperate battle yet. They fought with a ferocity born of despair and determination against a seemingly endless horde of Ultron's robotic drones, each one a metallic embodiment of his destructive will. The skies above Sokovia became a chaotic ballet of destruction and heroism. The Avengers, a fractured but ultimately united force, fought with every ounce of their strength, their powers unleashed against the metallic tide. Iron Man's sword, repulsor blasts tearing through the robotic legions. Captain America led with unwavering resolve, his shield deflecting energy blasts and carving a path through the enemy. Thor's hammer rained down thunder and lightning, while Hulk's roars echoed with primal fury. Vision, the newly born sentinel of peace, used the power of the Mind Stone to dismantle Ultron's forces, a living paradox fighting against the very intelligence that had sought to create him. Wanda Maximoff, her powers now fully awakened, wielded chaos magic with devastating effect, tearing apart robots with a flick of her wrist, her grief and anger channeled into raw, destructive energy. Pietro, with his impossible speed, darted through the battlefield, pulling civilians from harm's way, his blur a fleeting streak of hope amidst the devastation. In the end, Ultron was defeated, his consciousness fragmented, his physical forms destroyed. but the victory came at a terrible cost. Pietro Maximoff, in a selfless act of heroism, sacrificed himself to save Hawkeye and a young boy, his super speed unable to outrun the hail of bullets. Sokovia, the city that had been lifted to the heavens, was utterly devastated, its landscape scarred, its people forever changed by the terror they had endured. The echoes of that day, the whispers of loss and destruction, would linger in the air, a grim reminder of the fragility of peace. In the aftermath of the Sokovian tragedy, as the dust settled and the world grappled with the enormity of what had transpired, a profound shift began to ripple through the global political landscape. The sheer scale of destruction, the unprecedented power wielded by enhanced individuals, and the very existence of a sentient AI capable of such widespread devastation ignited a fervent debate about accountability and control. The United Nations, spurred by the collective trauma and a desperate need for order, introduced the Sokovia Accords, an international legal document designed to regulate and oversee the activities of all enhanced individuals. This sweeping legislation mandated that all superpowered beings register their identities, their abilities, and operate under the direct supervision and authority of a governing body, effectively transforming them from independent heroes into state-sanctioned assets. The intent was clear: to prevent another Ultron, another Sokovia, to bring order to the chaos that had become synonymous with superhuman intervention. The world, weary of uncontrolled power, demanded a leash. The Accords, born from the ashes of Sokovia, immediately created a deep and irreconcilable schism within the Avengers, tearing apart the very fabric of their camaraderie. Tony Stark, still reeling from the guilt of creating Ultron, haunted by the spectre of his own hubris, became a staunch advocate for the Accords. His belief in unchecked power, once a source of strength, had been shattered by the horrors he had unleashed. He saw the Accords as a necessary evil, a way to atone for his mistakes, to ensure that no hero, no matter how well-intentioned, could ever again cause such widespread devastation without accountability. He believed in oversight, in regulation, in the quiet whispers of authority to guide their immense power. Conversely, Steve Rogers, Captain America, stood firmly in opposition. His experiences with S.H.I.E.L.D., with the insidious corruption that had festered within its ranks, had instilled in him a deep distrust of governmental control. He feared that the Accords would strip heroes of their autonomy, forcing them to compromise their moral compass, to become mere instruments of political will. He believed that the safest hands were their own, that freedom was paramount, and that a government's agenda could too easily be twisted, turning heroes into pawns in a bureaucratic game. This fundamental disagreement, a clash of ideals born from different eras and different battles, began to fray the bonds that held them together, casting long shadows over their shared purpose. The simmering tensions, the ideological divide, erupted into a full-blown crisis during the ratification ceremony of the Sokovia Accords in Vienna. A devastating bombing, a calculated act of terror, ripped through the International Center, claiming the life of King T'Chaka of Wakanda, a revered leader and a vocal proponent of the Accords. The world recoiled in horror, and almost immediately the blame was placed upon James Buchanan Bucky Barnes, the Winter Soldier, Captain America's oldest friend, who had only recently begun to regain his memories and his humanity. The evidence, meticulously planted by the true orchestrator of the attack, Helmut Zemo, seemed irrefutable, painting Bucky as a dangerous, uncontrollable threat. This framing, this cruel manipulation, served as the ultimate catalyst, pushing the Avengers past the point of no return. Captain America, unwavering in his loyalty to Bucky, convinced of his friend's innocence and determined to protect him from what he saw as a corrupt and unjust system, chose to defy the Accords and go rogue. He believed that Bucky deserved a fair trial, not immediate execution or imprisonment, and that the truth of the bombing needed to be unearthed, regardless of the cost. Iron Man, still burdened by guilt, and now witnessing the chaos that Bucky's supposed actions had wrought, felt compelled to enforce the Accords, to bring his friend to justice, even if it meant fighting those he once called family. This fundamental divergence, this collision of loyalty and law, of friendship and duty, culminated in a devastating civil war at Leipzig-Halle Airport. The heroes, once a united front against global threats, were now pitted against each other, a heartbreaking spectacle of former allies clashing in a desperate, brutal conflict. It was a battle of ideals, a clash of titans, where friendships were shattered, and the very definition of heroism was called into question, leaving behind a trail of emotional scars that would linger for years to come. The quiet hours of that night were filled not with the whispers of villains, but with the painful echoes of heroes fighting each other. A tragedy born from good intentions and irreconcilable beliefs. We're drifting slowly into the timeline of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, a vast tapestry of heroes and villains, of cosmic wonders and quiet human struggles that began with a simple man in a cave, forging his own destiny, only to expand into a universe of interconnected fates and looming threats. Born in the shadowed laboratories and battlefields of a world grappling with extraordinary power, it grew into a saga spanning galaxies and dimensions. But beneath the gleaming armor and the vibrant costumes, something darker always stirred, a whisper of inevitable conflict, of sacrifices yet to be made. This is the story of how ordinary lives and extraordinary abilities intertwined, charting a course towards an ultimate confrontation, a chronicle of souls burdened by responsibility, and how the echoes of their choices will forever resonate through the quiet hours. Born in the post-war optimism of the mid-20th century, where the promise of scientific advancement and the shadow of global conflict shaped a new generation of heroes, the world was slowly awakening to the presence of the extraordinary. From the frozen wastes of the Arctic to the bustling streets of New York, a new era of champions began to emerge, each carrying the weight of their own unique origins, their own personal battles. But beneath the surface, beneath the public parades and the whispered legends, a more complex reality was forming, a web of government oversight, of secret organizations, and of ancient cosmic forces beginning to stir. This is the story of how a world once defined by its earthly conflicts began to look to the stars, and how the choices made in the quiet corners of the globe would ripple outward, touching the very fabric of the cosmos. This is the story of how a simple vision for family fun became a chronicle of souls trapped in metal, and how one man's obsession still echoes in whispers through the quiet hours. As the dust settled from the fracturing of the Avengers, a division born from the Sokovia Accords, the year 2016 unfurled a new chapter, one where the lines between hero and vigilante blurred even further, and the cosmic tapestry began to weave itself with threads of magic and ancient prophecy. It was a time of unexpected alliances and sudden, profound shifts in the very nature of reality. We found ourselves then with Scott Lang, the Ant-Man, a man whose unique abilities allowed him to shrink and grow, now confined by the terms of his house arrest, a quiet penance for his involvement in the civil war that had torn the Avengers asunder. His days were spent in the mundane rhythms of domesticity, a stark contrast to the exhilarating, impossible feats he had once performed. the very air of his home heavy with the unspoken promise of adventure just beyond his reach. Yet, even in this enforced quietude, the world outside continued its inexorable march toward greater dangers. It was during this period of uneasy peace that Captain America, ever the steadfast leader, ever the beacon of unwavering conviction, found himself in need of allies, those who understood the true cost of freedom, even when it meant defying the very institutions they had once sworn to protect. He reached out to Lang, to the man who could navigate the smallest of spaces and deliver the most unexpected of blows. And so, Scott, despite the strictures placed upon him, was drawn back into the fray. He joined Captain America's faction, a small band of heroes who believed in individual liberty above governmental control, assembling at the Leipzig-Halle airport in Germany, a place that would soon become etched into the annals of superhuman conflict. It was a clash not of good versus evil, but of differing philosophies, of deeply held beliefs, where friends became adversaries, and the very foundations of their unity were shaken to their core. Simultaneously, in the bustling, vibrant borough of Queens, New York, a young high school student named Peter Parker lived a life seemingly ordinary, yet beneath the surface of textbooks and teenage anxieties, he harbored a secret, a profound responsibility. He was Spider-Man, a nascent hero, still learning the delicate balance between his extraordinary powers and the ordinary demands of his life. His days were a whirlwind of classes, homework, and the quiet, thrilling pursuit of justice, swinging through the city's concrete canyons, a guardian in the making. It was here, in the midst of this burgeoning heroism, that Tony Stark, the brilliant and often impulsive Iron Man, saw potential, a raw, untapped power he believed could be harnessed for the greater good, particularly in the escalating conflict surrounding the Sokovia Accords. Stark, ever the pragmatic strategist, sought to bolster his own ranks, and so he approached Peter, offering him a chance to step onto a stage far grander than the streets of Queens. Peter, wide-eyed and eager, was recruited to join Stark's team, a momentous decision that would irrevocably alter the trajectory of his young life, thrusting him into a world of global stakes and impossible choices, a world where his innocent optimism would be tested time and again. As these battles of ideology and power raged on Earth, a different kind of transformation was beginning, one rooted not in technology or physical prowess, but in the ancient mystical arts. Dr. Stephen Strange, a neurosurgeon of unparalleled skill and even greater arrogance, lived a life of opulent comfort, his hands his instruments, his intellect his scepter. He moved through the world with an almost dismissive confidence, believing himself to be the master of his own destiny, his own fate. But the universe, in its infinite and often cruel wisdom, had other plans. A devastating car accident, a sudden, violent twist of metal and fate, left his hands shattered, his nerves irrevocably damaged, effectively ending his surgical career, shattering the very foundation of his identity. The man who had once held lives in his hands was now unable to even hold a scalpel, his world collapsing into a void of despair and bitterness. In his desperate search for a cure, for a way to reclaim the life he had lost, Strange exhausted every conventional avenue, every scientific possibility, only to find himself at the precipice of unconventional wisdom. His journey, fueled by a potent blend of grief and unwavering determination, led him to the remote, enigmatic enclave of Kamartaj, nestled amidst the towering peaks of Kathmandu, Nepal. It was a place shrouded in mystery, a sanctuary where the physical laws of the universe seemed to bend, where whispers of ancient magic lingered in the air like incense. There, he encountered the Ancient One, a figure of immense power and serene wisdom, who saw beyond Strange's broken body to the vast, untapped potential within his mind. Under the Ancient One's tutelage, Strange began his arduous and often humbling training in the mystic arts, learning to tap into energies previously unimaginable, to perceive realities beyond the mundane, to bend the very fabric of space and time. It was a path of self-discovery, of shedding his ego, of learning that true power lay not in control, but in surrender to the greater forces at play. Through rigorous discipline and an insatiable thirst for knowledge, Dr. Stephen Strange, once a man of science, became a master of the mystic arts, his hands, once broken, now capable of wielding powerful spells, of weaving protective shields, of opening portals to distant lands. He took on the mantle of Earth's primary protector against magical threats, a guardian unseen by the common eye, standing sentinel against incursions from other dimensions, against the dark forces that sought to unravel the delicate balance of their reality. His journey was a testament to the idea that sometimes the greatest losses can lead to the most profound transformations, that the end of one path can be the beginning of an entirely new and far more extraordinary one. While Earth grappled with its internal conflicts and the nascent stirrings of magic, the vast, silent expanse of space continued to unfold its own epic sagas. The Guardians of the Galaxy, that motley crew of misfits and unlikely heroes, continued their cosmic adventures. Their ship, the Milano, a tiny speck against the backdrop of swirling nebulae and distant stars. Their days were filled with daring heists, narrow escapes, and the constant, bickering camaraderie that defined their unique bond. It was during this period that they encountered Ego, a celestial being of immense power and unfathomable age, a living planet whose charming facade concealed a terrifying, universe-spanning ambition. He revealed himself to be Peter Quill's father, a revelation that shook the very foundations of Quill's understanding of himself, of his origins. The subsequent confrontation with Ego was a battle of cosmic proportions, a struggle for the very soul of the universe, and a poignant exploration of family, both found and lost, leaving an indelible mark on the Guardians and on Quill himself. Back on Earth, Peter Parker, the young Spider-Man, found himself caught between two worlds, struggling with the delicate, often overwhelming task of balancing his high school life with its mundane concerns of homework and crushes, and his new, exhilarating, yet terrifying responsibilities as a superhero. The weight of his powers, the constant threat of exposure, and the ever-present need to protect his city all pressed down upon him. He often received guidance, sometimes unsolicited, from Tony Stark, who, despite his own complex motivations, acted as a reluctant mentor, offering technological upgrades, strategic advice, and a stern, yet ultimately caring hand. It was under Iron Man's mentorship that Spider-Man was formally introduced to the wider world of superheroes, a world far more dangerous and demanding than he could have ever imagined. A world where the stakes were not just his own life, but the fate of entire populations. And as these earthly and cosmic narratives intertwined, a storm of ancient prophecy and cosmic destruction began to brew far beyond the familiar confines of Earth. Thor, the mighty god of thunder, found himself embroiled in a devastating personal and cosmic crisis. He discovered the impending return of his long-lost sister, Hela, the goddess of death, a being of immense power and terrifying ambition, who had been imprisoned for millennia. Her resurgence signaled the arrival of Ragnarok, the prophesied end of Asgard, a cataclysmic event that would bring about the destruction of his home, his people, and everything he held dear. The ensuing conflict was a brutal, heartbreaking struggle, a battle against an unstoppable force, culminating in the tragic yet necessary destruction of Asgard itself, a fiery, apocalyptic spectacle that left a gaping wound in the heart of the cosmos. In the aftermath of this devastating loss, Thor, along with his mischievous brother Loki, who, for once, found himself on the side of genuine heroism, and the formidable Hulk, who had been absent from Earth for years, and the fierce warrior Valkyrie, a survivor of Asgard's ancient wars, managed to escape the fiery demise of their homeworld. They fled aboard a refugee vessel, a fragile ark carrying the last remnants of Asgardian civilization, their faces etched with grief and determination. They were adrift in the vastness of space, their home gone, their future uncertain, but united by the shared trauma of Ragnarok and the unspoken promise of a new beginning, a new purpose forged in the ashes of their former glory. This period marked a profound shift for Thor, stripping him of his most cherished possessions and forcing him to confront the true meaning of kingship, of responsibility, not just to a place, but to a people. We're drifting slowly into the timeline of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, a sprawling tapestry woven from cosmic wonders and human frailties that began with a soldier's sacrifice and expanded into a universe teetering on the brink of oblivion. Born in the shadowed laboratories of the 1940s, where super soldiers were forged and ancient evils stirred, it grew into a world of heroes, gods, and impossible technologies. But beneath the vibrant facade of heroism, something darker lurked, threats born of ambition, powers seeking dominion that turned worlds into battlegrounds for restless forces. This is the story of how a simple vision for justice became a chronicle of interconnected destinies, and how one mad titan's obsession still echoes in whispers through the quiet hours. Born in the quiet hours after the Second World War, the seeds of this universe were sown in the crucible of conflict, in a time when the world yearned for heroes. Captain America, a symbol of hope and unwavering courage, emerged from the super soldier serum, his moral compass a beacon against the encroaching darkness. His battles against Hydra, a shadowy organization steeped in ancient mysticism and technological terror, defined an era. We saw the Tesseract, a glowing cube of immense power, first appear, a relic of cosmic energy that would later shape destinies. This was a world of nascent science, of daring espionage, and of a clear, if often brutal, line between good and evil. The world was still finding its footing, unaware of the vastness that lay beyond its skies. But beneath the surface of this burgeoning heroism, something far more ancient and insidious began to stir. The Tesseract, an Infinity Stone, was not merely a powerful weapon, but a key to unlocking forces beyond human comprehension. Its very presence hinted at a larger cosmic order, one that would inevitably clash with the burgeoning sentience of Earth. The whispers of other worlds, of alien empires and forgotten deities, began to permeate the quiet hours, slowly, inexorably, pulling our planet into a grander, more terrifying narrative. The purity of Captain America's fight, once so clear, would soon be muddied by the complexities of a universe far older and more ruthless than humanity could ever imagine. This is the story of how the dreams of a few brave souls, born in the ashes of war, expanded to encompass an entire cosmos, only to find themselves facing a threat so absolute, so utterly convinced of its own twisted righteousness, that it would reshape the very fabric of existence, leaving behind a trail of grief and a universe forever altered by the echoes of a single, devastating choice. We will witness how individual acts of courage and sacrifice, once confined to the battlefields of Earth, would become intertwined with the fates of countless civilizations, culminating in a confrontation that would test the very limits of heroism and leave us contemplating the true cost of balance. As the years drifted by, the world grew accustomed to the extraordinary. Iron Man soared through skies, a testament to human ingenuity and a troubled conscience. Thor, a god from another realm, descended, bringing with him tales of Asgard and the Nine Realms, of ancient magic and cosmic threats. The Hulk, a creature of untamed power, wrestled with his own inner demons. These heroes, once disparate figures, eventually found themselves drawn together, forming the Avengers, a shield against the mounting darkness. Their battles against Loki, Thor's mischievous brother, and the Chitauri invasion of New York were defining moments, showcasing the fragile unity of Earth's defenders. We saw the Mind Stone embedded within Loki's scepter, a tool of manipulation and control, further hinting at the immense power that lay scattered across the cosmos. The world, though scarred, emerged from these early conflicts with a renewed sense of purpose, a belief that together they could face any threat. Yet, even in their victories, the subtle currents of a greater storm were gathering, far beyond their immediate sight. The formation of SHIELD and its subsequent collapse revealed the vulnerabilities inherent in even the most powerful organizations, leaving a vacuum that darker forces were eager to fill. The emergence of Ultron, a twisted reflection of Tony Stark's desire for global peace, further underscored the dangers of unchecked ambition and the unintended consequences of even the noblest intentions. Each triumph, each hard-won peace, seemed to carry with it the seeds of the next, more profound challenge. The cosmic stage expanded further with the introduction of the Guardians of the Galaxy, a motley crew of misfits and outlaws who navigated the vast, untamed reaches of space. Their journey brought us closer to the raw, untamed power of the Infinity Stones, particularly the Power Stone, a destructive force capable of annihilating entire planets. We witnessed the vastness of the universe, filled with countless species, ancient empires, and untold wonders, but also with profound dangers. Meanwhile, on Earth, Doctor Strange, a brilliant but arrogant surgeon, delved into the mystic arts, discovering dimensions beyond human comprehension and becoming the guardian of the Time Stone. His journey was one of self-discovery and sacrifice, as he learned that true power lay not in ego, but in protecting the delicate balance of reality. These disparate threads, woven across galaxies and through mystical realms, were all unknowingly converging towards a single cataclysmic event. The universe, in its quiet hours, was holding its breath, unaware of the storm that was about to break. And so, in the quiet hours of 2018, a shadow, long whispered about in hushed tones across the cosmos, finally began to move with purpose. Thanos, the mad titan, a figure whose grim philosophy had been slowly unfurling in the background, embarked on his active quest to collect all 6 Infinity Stones. He believed, with an unshakable conviction born of personal tragedy and a twisted sense of cosmic duty, that the only way to save the universe from the inevitable collapse brought by overpopulation and resource depletion was to eliminate half of all life. His vision was not one of malice, but of a brutal, cold logic, a terrifying form of salvation. His first brutal act, a chilling prelude to the devastation to come, unfolded upon the Asgardian refugee ship the statesman. Having just escaped the destruction of their homeworld, the Asgardians, led by Thor, were adrift, vulnerable. Thanos and his Black Order, his loyal and fearsome generals, descended upon them with overwhelming force. Their target, the Space Stone, which Thor had entrusted to Loki, now contained within the Tesseract. The ensuing battle was swift and merciless. We saw the overwhelming power of Thanos, effortlessly subduing Thor and the Hulk. In a moment of desperate defiance, Loki, ever the trickster but now a hero, attempted to bargain with Thanos, offering his fealty, only to make a final fatal attempt to stab the Titan. Thanos, unyielding, crushed Loki's neck, ending the life of the god of mischief, a character whose journey had been one of complex redemption. Half of the Asgardians perished in this brutal assault, their hopes for a new home extinguished before they could even begin. The Space Stone was ripped from the Tesseract, adding the first gem to Thanos' gauntlet, a dark omen for all who remained. With the Space Stone secured, Thanos turned his gaze towards Earth, a planet he knew harbored two more precious gems. He dispatched his Black Order, his devoted children, retrieve them. Ebony Maw, a master of telekinesis and manipulation, and Cull Obsidian, a hulking brute of immense strength, were sent to New York, their primary objective to seize the Time Stone from Doctor Strange. At the same time, Proxima Midnight and Corvus Glaive were tasked with extracting the Mind Stone from Vision, an android whose very existence was intertwined with the stone's power. The arrival of these alien forces on Earth was sudden and terrifying, shattering the fragile peace that had settled over the world since the Chitauri invasion. It was in this moment of crisis that Bruce Banner, having been brutally defeated by Thanos on the Statesman, crash-landed in the Sanctum Sanctorum, the mystical stronghold of Doctor Strange. His desperate warning to Tony Stark and Strange was stark and chilling. Thanos was coming, and he was coming for the stones. The gravity of the threat, the sheer, unimaginable power of this cosmic entity, began to dawn upon Earth's mightiest heroes. The casual banter and internal squabbles that had often characterized their interactions were suddenly overshadowed by a unifying dread, a realization that they faced an enemy unlike any they had ever encountered, an enemy whose victory would mean the end of half of all life. While his children hunted on Earth, Thanos himself journeyed to nowhere, the severed head of a celestial that served as a cosmic mining colony and a haven for outlaws. Here, the Collector, a peculiar and ancient being, held the Reality Stone. Thanos, ever the master of deception, used the Power Stone to create a devastating illusion of a burning nowhere, a trick that momentarily fooled the Guardians of the Galaxy. He then revealed his true presence, confronting the Collector and effortlessly taking the Reality Stone. This stone, once in his possession, allowed him to manipulate reality itself, turning objects and beings into fleeting illusions, a terrifying display of his growing power. The Guardians, despite their bravery, were outmatched, their attempts to stop him proving futile against the might of a Titan, now wielding 3 Infinity Stones. The next stone, the Soul Stone, proved to be the most elusive, its location a closely guarded secret. Thanos, desperate to find it, kidnapped Gamora, his adopted daughter, a warrior whose knowledge of the stone was rumored to be profound. He then subjected Nebula, Gamora's cybernetically enhanced sister, to unimaginable torture, disassembling her body piece by agonizing piece, knowing that Gamora's deep love for her sister would break her resolve. The torment was unbearable, and Gamora, in a moment of agonizing desperation, finally revealed the location of the Soul Stone, Vormir, a desolate and haunting world shrouded in an ethereal green mist. The price of this knowledge, however, would be far greater than any could have anticipated. Upon arriving on Vormir, Thanos and Gamora were met by the Stonekeeper, a spectral figure who revealed himself to be none other than the Red Skull, Captain America's old nemesis, cursed to guard the Soul Stone after his own failed attempt to wield its power. He explained the terrible truth. To acquire the Soul Stone, one must sacrifice that which they love most. Gamora, believing she had thwarted Thanos by making him believe he loved nothing, was horrified to discover the depth of his twisted affection for her. With tears streaming down his face, a perverse display of emotion from the Mad Titan, Thanos threw Gamora from the precipice, watching her fall to her death. Her sacrifice, a moment of profound tragedy and a testament to her enduring love, allowed Thanos to claim the Soul Stone, a gem steeped in the very essence of life and death. The universe recoiled, a collective gasp echoing through the quiet hours as Thanos' grim mission marched relentlessly forward. With 5 of the 6 stones now embedded in his gauntlet, Thanos turned his attention to the final gem, the Time Stone, which he knew Doctor Strange possessed. His journey brought him to Titan, his destroyed homeworld, a desolate landscape of floating islands and shattered ruins, a stark reminder of the overpopulation that had, in his eyes, doomed his people. Here, he was confronted by an unlikely alliance: Iron Man, Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, and the remaining Guardians of the Galaxy, Star-Lord, Drax, and Mantis. A desperate and furious battle ensued, a masterclass in improvisation and sheer will against overwhelming power. The heroes, utilizing every ounce of their ingenuity and strength, came agonizingly close to disarming Thanos, with Iron Man even drawing blood from the seemingly invincible Titan. However, Star-Lord's grief-fueled rage, upon learning of Gamora's death, momentarily derailed their plan. In the chaotic aftermath, Doctor Strange, witnessing countless possible futures, made a terrible choice. He surrendered the Time Stone to Thanos, not out of fear, but in exchange for Tony Stark's life, whispering cryptic words about the Endgame to come. The final Infinity Stone was now in Thanos' possession, and the universe held its breath. The culmination of Thanos' quest brought him to Wakanda, a vibrant, technologically advanced nation on Earth, where the remaining Avengers and Wakandan forces had gathered to protect Vision, whose very life force was intertwined with the Mind Stone. A massive battle erupted, a desperate last stand against Thanos' forces. Captain America, Black Panther, Black Widow, Hulk, Falcon, War Machine, and the Dora Milaje fought with incredible courage, attempting to hold back the tide. Even Thor, wielding his new axe, Stormbreaker, arrived to turn the tide, striking Thanos with a devastating blow that should have ended his reign. But Thanos, ever resilient, ever focused on his singular horrifying goal, recovered. He ripped the Mind Stone from Vision's forehead, extinguishing the android's life and completing his gauntlet. With all 6 Infinity Stones now assembled, pulsating with unimaginable power on his gauntlet, Thanos simply raised his hand. With a quiet, almost reverent act, he snapped his fingers. The universe shuddered. A wave of cosmic energy rippled across all existence. And then, silence. Half of all life in the universe, chosen at random, simply ceased to be, dissolving into dust. Many heroes, including Spider-Man, Black Panther, Doctor Strange, the Guardians of the Galaxy, and countless others vanished, their last moments filled with confusion and fear. The air thickened with grief, a profound and universal sorrow settling over the survivors. Thanos, his work complete, watched the sunset on a grateful universe, believing he had brought balance, leaving behind a world shattered by loss, a universe forever scarred by the echo of his terrible, decisive act. The quiet hours were now filled with the silent screams of the vanished and the hollow ache of those left behind. The echoes of that devastating victory, a triumph for Thanos, a cataclysm for all life, lingered long after the dust settled. It was the year 2018, and in an instant, with a mere snap of bejeweled fingers, half of all living beings in the universe simply ceased to exist. We watched as heroes, titans of courage and strength, dissolved into dust, their forms scattering like forgotten dreams upon the wind. This was the blip, a wound torn into the very fabric of existence, a sudden, brutal silence where once there had been the vibrant symphony of life. The universe, in that moment, was irrevocably altered, plunged into a mourning so profound it seemed to absorb all light and hope. The surviving heroes, those left behind to witness the unfolding horror, found themselves adrift in an ocean of grief and bewilderment. The scale of the loss was unfathomable, a weight that crushed even the strongest spirits. Tony Stark, the brilliant, often arrogant inventor who had faced down gods and monsters, now found himself a broken man. He retreated from the world, seeking solace in the quiet domesticity he had once yearned for, raising his daughter, Morgan, far from the shattered remnants of his heroic past. The world outside his secluded cabin was a ghost of its former self, a testament to the irreversible damage wrought by Thanos' twisted vision of balance. Captain America, ever the unwavering beacon of hope, found himself leading support groups, his voice a somber comfort to those grappling with the sudden, inexplicable void left by vanished loved ones. He spoke of moving on, of rebuilding, but the weariness in his eyes betrayed the crushing burden he carried, the silent question of whether anything truly could be rebuilt after such a comprehensive undoing. 5 long years stretched out, each one heavier than the last. The world, once bustling with life, now moved with a muted, hesitant rhythm. Society struggled to cope with the sudden mass disappearances. Cities became monuments to absence, their streets emptier, their skylines punctuated by the silent, unmoving cranes of abandoned construction projects. The quiet hours were filled not with the hum of progress, but with the whispers of memory, the aching echoes of those who were no more. Families were torn asunder, half-empty dinner tables a constant, painful reminder of what had been lost. The very concept of time seemed to warp, each day a struggle against the creeping tendrils of despair, a slow, agonizing acceptance of a new, diminished reality. Hope, once a vibrant flame, flickered precariously, threatening to extinguish entirely in the pervasive gloom. Then, a tremor in the stillness, a ripple in the fabric of this new, somber existence. In 2023, a figure emerged from the impossible, from the swirling subatomic chaos of the quantum realm. Scott Lang, the Ant-Man, had been trapped there during the cataclysm, a prisoner of its strange temporal distortions. For him, only 5 hours had passed, a fleeting moment in the vastness of the microverse, while outside 5 years had bled away, leaving a world irrevocably altered. He stepped out of the confines of his quantum prison and into a reality that was both familiar and terrifyingly alien. The world he knew was gone, replaced by a landscape of quiet grief and the haunting absence of half its population. The realization hit him with the force of a physical blow, the weight of those lost years pressing down upon him. Driven by a desperate, burgeoning hope, Scott Lang made his way to the Avengers compound, a place that now felt more like a mausoleum than a fortress. He brought with him not just his own bewildered story, but a fragile yet potent idea, a chance to undo the undoable. The quantum realm, with its fluid relationship to time, offered a pathway, a theoretical means to reverse the devastating snap. He spoke of time travel, of retrieving what was lost, his words a spark in the suffocating darkness that had enveloped the remaining heroes. The concept was audacious, seemingly impossible, yet it was the first true glimmer of hope they had seen in half a decade. The Avengers, a fractured and weary group, gathered once more, their old alliances strained by grief and the passage of time. The idea of rewriting history, of tampering with the very flow of existence, was daunting, fraught with unimaginable risks. Yet, the alternative was an eternity of quiet despair. Even Tony Stark, so entrenched in his protective shell of domestic bliss, found himself drawn back into the fold, the lure of saving his lost friends and countless others proving too strong to resist. He, with his unparalleled intellect, began to formulate the intricate, perilous plan, to journey through time, to different points in the past, and retrieve the Infinity Stones before Thanos could ever lay his gauntlet upon them. It was a gamble of cosmic proportions, a desperate attempt to reclaim a future that had been stolen. As the plan slowly began to take shape, a crucial piece of their shattered team was still missing. Clint Barton, the Hawkeye, had been utterly broken by the blip. His entire family, his wife and children, had vanished in the snap, leaving him adrift in a world devoid of their light. The grief had twisted him, transforming the skilled archer into Ronin, a brutal, vengeful vigilante. He stalked the criminal underworld of Tokyo, his arrows now instruments of merciless judgment, his soul consumed by a dark, unyielding rage. Natasha Romanoff, ever loyal, ever the one to hold the fragmented pieces of their team together, found him there, a shadow in the neon-lit streets, a ghost of the man she once knew. She offered him not judgment, but a chance at redemption, a purpose beyond the endless cycle of vengeance, a hope that perhaps, just perhaps, his family could be brought back from the dust. It was a quiet plea, born of shared sorrow and an unwavering belief in the possibility of a better tomorrow, a whispered promise that perhaps the blip was not the end, but merely a terrible, agonizing pause. 5 years had now passed since the universe had been torn asunder, since the dust had settled on that devastating snap. 5 years of quiet grief, of a world forever altered, its population halved, its spirit broken. It was the year 2023, a time marked by absence, by echoes of what once was, and the remaining heroes, those who had survived the initial crushing blow of Thanos' victory, found themselves adrift in a sea of unspoken sorrow. They were scattered, each carrying the weight of their failure, the phantom limb of a universe that felt incomplete. Yet, even in the deepest shadows, a flicker of hope, however faint, refused to be extinguished entirely. It began, as so many strange things do, with a whisper from the quantum realm. Scott Lang, the Ant-Man, had been caught in that swirling subatomic dimension during the initial chaos, trapped in a timeless void where 5 hours felt like 5 years. When he finally emerged, disoriented and alone, he found a world that had moved on, a world that had mourned him. His return, however, was not just a reunion, it was a revelation. For Scott, those 5 hours had been a blink, while on Earth, half a decade had passed. This peculiar disparity, This bending of time's rigid rules within the quantum realm sparked a dangerous, desperate idea in the minds of the remaining Avengers. Perhaps, just perhaps, the past was not as immutable as they believed. Perhaps the snap, that cosmic act of erasure, could be undone. The initial discussions were fraught with both a desperate yearning and a profound weariness. The trauma of their last encounter with Thanos still clung to them like a shroud. The very notion of time travel, of tampering with the fabric of reality, felt like an act of hubris, a gamble with stakes too high to comprehend. Yet the alternative was an eternity of quiet despair, a universe forever diminished. The key, they realized, lay in understanding the quantum realm's unique temporal properties, in harnessing PIM particles, those miraculous subatomic particles that allowed for shrinking and growing, to navigate the currents of time itself. Tony Stark, the brilliant, often arrogant inventor, had retreated from the world, finding solace in a quiet life with Pepper Potts and their daughter, Morgan. He had built a home, a family, a fragile piece that he fiercely protected. The call to return, to once again risk everything, was a heavy burden. He was a man who had seen the abyss, who had wrestled with his own demons of responsibility and guilt. The thought of jeopardizing his newfound happiness, of returning to the endless cycle of heroism and sacrifice, was almost unbearable. He initially refused. The weight of his past failures, the stark image of Thanos' triumph, still fresh in his mind. But the lure of redemption, the silent plea of a universe in mourning, and perhaps the quiet, insistent voice of his own conscience, eventually proved too strong. He saw a photograph of Peter Parker, his young protégé, now dust in the wind, and something within him shifted. He could not, in good conscience, turn away. With his unparalleled intellect and the resources of his vast company, Tony Stark began to work. The problem was not merely traveling through time, but doing so with precision, with the ability to return, to navigate the infinite possibilities of the past without irrevocably altering the present. He wrestled with complex equations, with the very laws of physics, his mind a whirlwind of calculations and theoretical constructs. Eventually, through sheer force of will and genius, he devised a stable method, a system that combined PIM particles with a sophisticated temporal GPS, allowing for precise jumps to specific points in history and, crucially, a safe return. The apparatus was elegant, yet terrifying in its implications. A conduit to the past, a chance to rewrite the darkest chapter of their shared story. The plan was audacious, bordering on suicidal. Journey into the past, collect the 6 Infinity Stones before Thanos could, and use their combined power to reverse the snap. Each stone represented a specific aspect of existence: space, mind, reality, power, time, and soul. And each had its own perilous history, its own guardians, its own price. The Avengers split into teams, each tasked with retrieving specific stones from different timelines, from different moments in their own history. It was a race against time, a desperate heist across the fabric of reality. Among those who volunteered for this perilous mission were Clint Barton, Hawkeye, and Natasha Romanoff, Black Widow. Clint had lost his entire family in the snap, his world reduced to ash and silence. He had spent the intervening years as a vigilante, a ghost haunting the criminal underworld, his grief a burning, destructive force. Natasha, his steadfast friend, his moral compass, understood his pain, for she too carried a heavy burden, a past she could never fully escape. Their mission led them to Vormir, a desolate, crimson-hued planet where the Soul Stone awaited. It was a place of sacrifice, of a terrible, unyielding truth. The stone demanded a soul for a soul, a beloved life for its power. Upon Vormir, they encountered the spectral guardian, the Red Skull, who had been cursed to guide others to the stone after his own failed attempt to wield its power. He explained the grim calculus. To gain the soul stone, one must sacrifice that which they love most. Both Clint and Natasha, bound by years of shared history, of loyalty and unspoken affection, understood the terrible choice before them. Each was willing to make the ultimate sacrifice for the other, for the chance to bring back their lost loved ones, for the hope of a better future. In a heart-wrenching struggle, a silent battle of wills, Natasha, with a fierce determination, chose to leap from the cliff's edge, sacrificing herself, her life, for the greater good. Her death, a profound act of love and selflessness, allowed Clint to retrieve the soul stone, but it left an indelible scar on his already wounded soul, a quiet echo of loss that would forever define him. Meanwhile, Bruce Banner, the brilliant scientist who had long struggled with the monstrous rage of the Hulk, had found a fragile peace. Through years of dedicated meditation and scientific endeavor, he had managed to merge his two identities, creating Professor Hulk, a being of immense strength and formidable intellect, a green giant who could now speak with eloquence and think with clarity. It was he, with his combined power and intellect, who was deemed capable of wielding the immense, destructive power of the Infinity Stones without being consumed by them. With the stones finally gathered, Tony Stark had designed a new gauntlet, a nano-gauntlet, capable of housing their power. Bruce, with a heavy heart and a deep understanding of the risks, donned the gauntlet. With a mighty roar, a surge of cosmic energy, he snapped his fingers, and the universe, in a blinding flash of light, began to heal. The snapped population, those who had vanished 5 years prior, returned, disoriented but alive, their world, though changed, once again made whole. But their victory was short-lived. The temporal ripples of their journey had not gone unnoticed. A past version of Thanos, from the timeline of 2014, before he had gathered any stones, before he had truly understood the depth of the Avengers' resolve, had followed them through the quantum realm. He arrived with his entire armada, his Black Order, his Chitauri army, intent on not just snapping away half of life, but on destroying the entire universe and rebuilding it anew, a universe free from the corruption of free will. What followed was a battle of epic proportions, a clash of titans on the ravaged remains of the Avengers compound. Heroes from across the galaxy, those who had returned from the snap, joined the fray. It was a symphony of power, a desperate struggle for the fate of all existence. In the midst of this chaotic, universe-altering conflict, Tony Stark, Iron Man, found himself face to face with his greatest enemy once more. Thanos, with the power of the reassembled Infinity Gauntlet, was poised to snap again, to complete his twisted vision. But Tony, ever the innovator, ever the one to find a way, saw a fleeting opportunity. In a moment of pure, unadulterated courage, he managed to steal the Infinity Stones from Thanos' gauntlet, the nanotech of his suit allowing them to transfer to his own armored hand. The sheer power of the stones coursed through him, a searing, agonizing energy that threatened to tear him apart. With a final, defiant gaze at Thanos, a quiet acknowledgement of the ultimate price, Tony Stark snapped his fingers. The cosmic energy surged, eradicating Thanos and his entire army, turning them to dust, just as they had turned so many others. But the cost was immense. The power of the stones was too great for a mortal man, even one encased in the most advanced armor. Tony Stark, the brilliant, flawed, and ultimately heroic Iron Man, fell, his light extinguished, his sacrifice saving the universe, but leaving an unfillable void in its wake. The battle was won, but the victory was bittersweet. The universe was safe, but its greatest protector was gone. A funeral was held for Tony Stark, a quiet, somber gathering attended by every hero, every ally, every friend he had ever made. It was a testament to his impact, to the lives he had touched, to the legacy he had built. His family, Pepper and Morgan, stood strong, surrounded by those who loved him, forever bound by his sacrifice. In the aftermath, Captain America, Steve Rogers, faced his own profound choice. With the Infinity Stones gathered, they still needed to be returned to their original timelines to prevent any catastrophic paradoxes. Steve volunteered for this final solitary mission. He journeyed back through time, not just to return the stones, but to finally live the life he had been denied, the life he had always longed for. He found Peggy Carter, the love of his life, and lived out his days in the quiet comfort of a life well lived, a life of peace and contentment, far from the battles and the chaos. He returned to the present, an old man, his mission complete, his heart full. In a poignant moment of transition, he passed his iconic vibranium shield to Sam Wilson, the Falcon, anointing him as the new Captain America, a symbol of hope and justice for a new generation. The era of the original Avengers, as they knew it, had come to a quiet, reflective close, making way for new beginnings and new challenges in a universe forever changed by their sacrifices. The dust of the snap and the subsequent blip had barely settled as we drifted into the years following 2023, into a world forever altered, a new era emerging from the ashes of a cosmic conflict. The return of billions, once vanished, now suddenly present again, was not the simple, joyous reunion many had imagined. Instead, it birthed a vast, sprawling tapestry of societal, economic, and political upheaval, a global recalibration that stretched the very fabric of human civilization to its breaking point. Homes were repossessed, families reunited with strangers, and the very concept of identity was fractured for countless souls. It was a time of immense quiet suffering beneath the surface of the triumphant return. In this landscape of profound change, we watched as Sam Wilson, a man who had always carried a quiet strength, finally embraced the weighty mantle of Captain America. The shield, a symbol of hope and unwavering ideals, now rested in his hands, a legacy both inspiring and daunting. He navigated the immense responsibilities that came with it, not as a super soldier, but as a man grappling with the complexities of a divided world, confronting the Flag Smashers, a group born from the very desperation and displacement caused by the blip, who sought a borderless world, a return to the perceived unity of those 5 lost years. Their methods, however, were violent, their ideals twisted by resentment, forcing Sam to define what it truly meant to be Captain America in a world that no longer believed in simple answers. He wrestled with the ghost of Steve Rogers, with the nation's expectations, and with his own sense of self, ultimately forging a new path for the iconic hero, one rooted in empathy and understanding, even as he wielded the vibranium shield with practiced grace. As the world struggled to find its footing, we were drawn into another tale of legacy and destiny, as Shang-Chi, a man who had long sought to escape his past, found himself inexorably pulled back into the hidden history of his family. He discovered the truth of the 10 Rings, not merely a criminal organization, but an ancient, mystical power wielded by his father, Wenwu, for 1,000 years. This revelation forced Shang-Chi to confront his own identity, the blend of his mother's peaceful wisdom and his father's formidable, albeit corrupted, power. The journey led him to Ta Lo, a mythical village hidden within a bamboo forest, a place brimming with ancient magic and guarded secrets, where he faced his father in a climactic confrontation. Wenwu, driven by grief and manipulation, sought to free the Dweller in Darkness, a monstrous entity imprisoned beyond a dark gate, believing it to be his deceased wife. Shang-Chi, with the aid of his sister Xialing and his friend Katie, ultimately defeated his father, preventing the catastrophic release of the Dweller in Darkness, and in doing so claimed the 10 rings for himself, not as a weapon of conquest, but as a tool for balance and protection. His struggles were not just physical, but deeply spiritual, a reconciliation with a heritage he had long denied. Amidst these unfolding narratives, a more personal quest for vengeance began to weave its way through the quiet hours. Yelena Belova, a formidable assassin and the sister of the late Natasha Romanoff, hunted Clint Barton, the Hawkeye. Her grief, raw and unyielding, had been expertly manipulated by Contessa Valentina Allegra de Fontaine, who fed Yelena the poisoned belief that Clint was responsible for Natasha's sacrifice on Vormir. Their initial encounters were fraught with tension and explosive combat, a clash of two souls burdened by loss. Yet, as the truth slowly unraveled, as Clint recounted the impossible choice, the shared burden of Natasha's memory began to forge an uneasy alliance between them. Yelena, confronted with the reality of Natasha's selfless act, found a measure of peace, and perhaps a new purpose, her initial rage transforming into a quiet understanding, a shared grief that bound her to Clint in an unexpected way. And then, from the very dawn of humanity, a deeper, more ancient secret began to stir. The Eternals, a race of immortal beings created by the Celestials, cosmic entities of immense power, had lived among humanity for millennia, silently guiding our development, protecting us from the monstrous deviants. Their long slumber, their quiet vigil, was shattered by the impending emergence of the celestial Tiamut, a new celestial gestating within the Earth's core, whose birth would mean the complete destruction of the planet. This revelation forced the Eternals to confront their true purpose, their programmed loyalty to Arishem, their creator, against their growing love for humanity. Circe, Icarus, Thena, Kingo, Phastos, Makari, Druig, Gilgamesh, Sprite, and Ajak each wrestled with this impossible choice. Ultimately, they chose to defy Arishem, to save Earth, even if it meant sacrificing their own immortality or facing the wrath of their creator. Their struggle was one of profound moral reckoning, a battle not just against the deviants, but against their own preordained destiny, a testament to the power of connection and free will. As these events unfolded, subtle, unsettling ripples began to spread through the very fabric of reality itself. The multiverse, once a theoretical concept for most, began to show undeniable signs of instability and interaction. Incursions, where one reality violently collides with another, and breaches, where the barriers between dimensions weakened, became more frequent, whispered about in hushed tones by those who understood their terrifying implications. It was a slow, creeping dread, a sense that the universe itself was unraveling at the seams, a direct consequence of past manipulations of time and space, of choices made with profound, unforeseen repercussions. Doctor Strange, a man who had once wielded the Eye of Agamotto with such confidence, found himself grappling with the devastating consequences of his own powerful magic. His spell, cast to make the world forget Peter Parker's identity as Spider-Man, had been corrupted, fractured by Peter's own desperate attempts to modify it, leading to multiversal incursions that pulled individuals from other realities into his own. This catastrophic event brought forth other versions of Spider-Man, each carrying their own burdens and wisdom, and force Strange to confront the dangers of tampering with fundamental laws. The very fabric of reality was stretched thin, threatening to tear apart completely, a terrifying dance on the edge of oblivion, all born from a single, well-intentioned, yet ultimately flawed, act of magic. This multiversal instability became a hunting ground for another powerful figure, Wanda Maximoff, the Scarlet Witch, now fully corrupted by the Darkhold, a book of dark magic that whispered promises of power and reunion. Her grief for her lost children, a wound that festered and grew, twisted her into a formidable, terrifying force. She sought to steal the unique power of America Chavez, a young girl with the innate ability to travel between universes, believing that by doing so, she could finally be reunited with her children in a reality where they still existed. This obsession led to a desperate multiversal chase, a terrifying display of Wanda's unchecked power, as she tore through realities, leaving destruction in her wake. Her journey was a tragic descent into madness, a stark reminder of how grief, when left unchecked, can consume and corrupt even the most heroic of souls. Meanwhile, a new, vibrant hero emerged from the quiet streets of Jersey City. Kamala Khan, a Pakistani-American teenager with a vivid imagination and a deep love for Captain Marvel, discovered her latent inhuman abilities through a mysterious bangle inherited from her great-grandmother. This bangle, a conduit to another dimension, unlocked her power to manifest cosmic energy, allowing her to create constructs of hard light. As Ms. Marvel, she embarked on a journey of self-discovery, uncovering her family's hidden connection to the clandestines, a group of jinn exiled from the Noor dimension, who sought to return home, even if it meant destroying Kamala's reality. Her story was one of identity, heritage, and the burgeoning power within, a testament to the idea that heroism can bloom in the most unexpected places, even in the heart of a fangirl. Finally, we witnessed the god of thunder, Thor, face a foe unlike any he had encountered before. Gore the god butcher, a being consumed by a righteous hatred for all deities after his own prayers went unanswered, wielded the necrosword, a powerful weapon capable of slaying even the most immortal of beings. Gore's quest was one of total eradication, a chilling reflection of the suffering he had endured. Thor, grappling with his own sense of purpose and loss, found himself fighting not just for the gods, but for the very concept of hope and belief. This battle was made even more poignant by the return of Jane Foster, now wielding a reforged Mjolnir, having been deemed worthy in her final days. Her cancer, exacerbated by the immense power of Mjolnir, ultimately claimed her, but not before she fought bravely as the mighty Thor. In the aftermath, Thor adopted Love, Gore's daughter, whom he had resurrected, a poignant ending to a devastating conflict, a new beginning for the god of thunder, now a father, carrying the weight of both loss and new responsibility. The echoes of these new challenges, these emerging threats, continue to whisper through the quiet hours, shaping the future of this complex, ever-evolving world. Thank you for drifting slowly through the timeline with me. If you've made it this far, drop a comment below and let me know where you're watching from and which part affected you most. Hit that button for more deep dives into the lore that haunts our nights, the echoes of a universe born from infinite potential shaped by the choices of gods and mortals, now settle into a fragile peace. The lessons endure. Good night. Rest well, and remember, the truest way to honor the fallen is to protect the living and to learn from the sacrifices made. This has been the complete timeline. Thank you for listening. Until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and never forget that some doors, once opened, can never truly be closed again. The story may be over, but its echoes will whisper in the quiet hours for generations to come.